Howdy, I'm back. Hello, happy Tuesday. Can you guys see me and hear me okay? Let me know in the chat. Hello, welcome back. Hi, Michelle. Yay, I'm glad you made it. Good to see you, girl. Thanks for being here and welcome everyone else. Hi, I'm Melly. Welcome to my channel. I am your host for the night. We are going to continue to cover Mackenzie Shirilla case. I know there's been a lot of content everywhere, but hey, everyone checking in. Thanks for being here. Happy Tuesday evening. It is Tuesday evening for me. Hi. So tonight we're not going to listen to any jail calls, but we are going to review some documents. So there's a couple of, hey Thomas, good to see you. There's a couple of different documents that I have. One of them is of text messages. We're going to start the review of text messages. It'll probably, this is part 2. We have been covering the text messages with Miss Russo and Mackenzie Shirilla. Miss Russo is Dom's mom, who is the victim. If you're not familiar with the Mackenzie case, please check out the playlist. She killed her boyfriend and their friend Davion 100 miles per hour and crashed into a building. I'm sure you're familiar with the case, but I have been covering all the calls. I have put out some calls that are not out on other channels yet. And now I have all the text messages between Dom and Mackenzie. I have about 31,000 pages of them. So obviously I'm not going to get through all of that tonight, which is why we do part 1, part 2, etc. I'm going to continue to finish the thread with Miss Russo. I only had a couple more pages to go. And then I do have a thread with her father that I wanted to get into. And I also have a document between the police and Rosie, which is one of Mackenzie's friends. And it is the rug document about Mackenzie selling substances, etc. So we're going to review that as well. Let me just, I haven't heard texts yet, so I'm excited. Yeah, I haven't seen him out anywhere either, so definitely excited. Okay, sorry, I forgot I had to share this a very specific way. I'm really excited to get to the Dom and Mackenzie text, but I did want to go through her and her dad's text as well. I don't know that there's anything that we're dying to know there, but I wanted to see the communication between them and how they treated each other via text. And obviously these were in the evidence package. So for some reason, the police felt like they needed to get the Celebrate data on all of these conversations. Hey, Tasha. Good to see you, lovely. Thank you for being here. Okay, so last time we left off on Miss Russo. I can't remember exactly which text, but I know these are a little bit of repeats. So this is where Mackenzie was asking, Mackenzie was asking Dom's brother if she could go over to his house. So she was saying, can you please ask if I can go to Dom's, please? And I forget, I have to switch it on the page for you guys too, sorry. And then Christopher says, yeah, I'll ask. And Mackenzie says, thank you. Can I at least know why I can't come in his house, please? And then Miss Russo replied with, we have let no one in there. The last live we did on the text messages, Mackenzie was really pushy on communicating with Miss Russo. And she was basically like, she was just texting her like, I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. Please forgive me. I wish it was me, et cetera, et cetera. And I did want to point that out in the interview that we watched, the last live with Angelo, Dom's brother. I think that's interesting. Yeah, that Mackenzie keeps saying, she wishes it was her, because it offers a different motive, I guess, to the case if she was trying to unalive herself, which some think that is a theory. I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. But also we found out in the Angelo interview, which is already on my playlist from before. I covered this back in 2024, but I am adding to that playlist. So make sure you check it out. In the police interview with Angelo, which is Dom's brother, they talk about how, Mackenzie was toxic. And so we find out in that interview as well that Miss Russo was telling the detective that she was still texting Mackenzie. So I think that she was texting Mackenzie at the request of the police still after the fact, because we know for a little bit that Miss Russo probably didn't think she was guilty, or maybe she did. I don't know, but she continues to be nice to her and text her, and we all question like why. But then she says in the interview with Angela Russo and the detective, she says, I've still been texting her because you wanted me to. So she clearly states that at some point she probably kept in touch with Mackenzie for a specific reason, probably for the investigation. I don't blame her. It was her son. She probably wanted to know if she did this intentionally or not. So let's continue with these. Oh, Miss Russo is Dom's mom. Dom is Mackenzie's boyfriend. Thank you, Tasha. So Dom is, Mackenzie's boyfriend, who was in the front seat, passenger seat when the crash happened. And then Davion was in the back seat. So on Tuesday, September 6th, Mackenzie says, can I at least know why I can't come to his house? They weren't letting her over there. And then Miss Russo says, we haven't let anyone in. Mackenzie says, I understand that, but I have things in there and I just want to sit on the couch or his bed. I won't mess anything up. I was there every day. I slept there. I just need to go in. It's driving me crazy. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sharing. You guys are like, hello, share the screen. Sharing is caring. Sorry, guys. I'm like, just look at me tonight. Just kidding. So she says, I was there every day. I slept there. I just need to go in. It's driving me crazy. And I'm sorry if this is hard or annoying, but it's hard for me not to be able to go to the place I stayed at for months. Even Frank can watch me while I'm there. It doesn't have to be today, but can it be soon, please? And then Miss Russo didn't respond, but she says 2 days later, did you pick a tree yet? Mackenzie says, no, I don't know if I want a weeping willow or a tree that burns red and falls, so it's red for his birthday. Did you have something in mind? And Miss Russo says, what turns red in the fall? Mackenzie says, I'm not sure yet. I'm still looking. And then Mackenzie says the next day at 4:53 a.m., she says, I'm sorry, I missed your call. I had a headache. Are you okay? And Miss Russo says, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. And Mackenzie says, do you need anything? I wish I answered. I'm sorry. And Miss Russo said, it's okay. I just wanted someone to cry with. And Mackenzie said, I will leave my ringer on at night from now on. And if you ever need somebody, I'm always here. I'm sorry I couldn't answer last night. I get sick at night. Do you think you guys ever going to let me be part of the family again? It hurts seeing all you guys get to be together and I just have to be here alone. I wish I could grieve with you guys. And Miss Russo says, it's not like that. It's not you. This has been nothing but heartbreaking. And Mackenzie says, it's part of it is cut off. So I apologize. And then she says, I'm going to have to watch from social media and I just want to be part of it for him. He would want all of us together. I'm sorry if this is hurting you or annoying, but it's hurting me too. I'm sorry. And Miss Russo says, I am so sorry. Also, I don't like the way things are either. It hurts me to see you sad. We all had so much fun together. I don't want you to be alone either. It's so horrible. And Mackenzie says, I'm going to be there for you as much as you want me to be. I don't know if you're ready yet, but I'm going to go to the zoo tomorrow. You're welcome to come with me. That was the last place I went with him. I was supposed to go on the 31st, but it was raining. It's going to be so sad, but I would love for you to come. And Miss Russo says, you mean you went to the zoo on Mother's Day? And then the conversation ends there on this thread, but then it goes into, I was explaining to you why it's difficult for things to try to be normal as they will never be. It still never answers what happened that night. That's what Miss Russo said. Sorry that it jumps. These are just from the police. So I put them together as best as I knew how. They're pretty much in order though. Mackenzie says, I wish I could remember just as much as you want to know why. It kills me not being able to remember because if I could help, I would. I wasn't asking for life to be normal. It's never going to be the same for me either. I just want to be able to grieve with everybody and be with everybody. It would make this a lot easier. It really does hurt me seeing everybody go to dinner and go to the grave, and I get to see because of a picture on Instagram. I know you guys are hurting, but I'm hurting just as bad, and it hurts even more going through this alone. He was my other half, and when he died, he took half my soul. I just wish everybody didn't blame me. Nobody understands that if I knew any of this was happening, I would have sacrificed myself. I would have sacrificed myself. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for family. And I think this is insane because Mackenzie has her own family, and she's trying to get into Dom's house because she wants the phone. We know that. She wants to see what is on the phone, that Dom's phone. Because there was a lot of things in that phone that Dom recorded where Mackenzie is violent and aggressive. If you haven't checked out my videos, pre-records, please go do it. There's calls on there. And the fight, the big argument that they had shortly before the accident is on there as well. And then Ms. Russo says, believe me, it doesn't make any of this easier. I wish none of these circumstances existed. I hate that things are this way. I don't want you hurting anymore and have all of your injuries to deal with too. Mackenzie says, I don't care about any of my injuries. I only care about Dom and the family. The feeling of you guys hating me and not being able to agree with you and just not having Dom with me is worse than all of the injuries combined. I literally have a black hole in my soul. I hope you guys can let me come just be part of the family again soon. I was just thinking about his birthday, and you guys are probably going to all do something together, and then I'm just going to have to watch from social media. And Ms. Russo says, I'm just going to have to watch from social media, and I just want to be part of it for him because he would want us all together. Ms. Russo says, it's not like that. It has been nothing but heartbreaking. I would do anything to have you both with me like before, but you need and you have to understand how one feels about this. Your driving killed my son, their brother, and their best friend. No one has any answers but why this accident occurred and why you drove directly into the building, which resulted in 2 young men dying. It was not an ordinary car accident. If it was, we would not be having this conversation. So Ms. Russo right here is like questioning her, like, hello? I think at this point, she probably knows from the detectives that something is going on. Mackenzie says, I didn't know you felt that way. I hope you would know I would never do this on purpose. I needed him more than anybody on this earth. He was my everything. And Ms. Russo says, I was explaining to you why it's difficult for things, to try to be normal as they ever will be. Is that, and then, sorry, I'm going to skip to the other page. Oh, did I forget to turn the page for you guys? And then she's back to talking about the zoo. So these must have got mixed up. But Mackenzie says, or Miss Russo says, I keep calling her Miss Russo. I just feel like it's appropriate, but her name is Christine Russo. She's Dom's mom. She says, you mean you went to the zoo on Mother's Day? No, on the 30th. We went to the zoo on Mother's Day, but we also went to the zoo on the 30th. We went to feed the birds, and I have a video, and it's the last video I have of Davion and Dom. And Miss Russo says, oh my God, I need to see that. Yeah, that is so sad. Mackenzie says, I will send it to you. The birds land on you. Some reason that day the birds were all over them and not me. And then, so the one where Miss Russo calls her out is on September. I'm sorry, I didn't say the 9th, the date. It was Friday, September 9th. So then on September 11th, Miss Russo says to Mackenzie, let me turn the page. She says, I have a laminator that to never used. I'll forgive it out, but I can do that with the picture, whatever you want, so it doesn't get ruined. So there was obviously a typo there. Mackenzie says, I want to bring the pictures from his funeral, but I get scared. So if you want, you can laminate that. I would love that. And Mr. Russo says, which ones? Mackenzie says, the ones of him smiling. How are you? Some reason I'm having a hard day. And Mr. Russo says, me too. Prayer card. And Mackenzie says, yes, please. And then she asked Miss Russo, did you ever get his phone from the police? So that's where she keeps asking about Dom's phone. And then let's move on to the next page. The birds can sense her evil. Yeah. Mackenzie says, I'm going to keep bugging my dad to put those on because I need them and I know you need them too. Miss Russo says, I'll have to see if what you sent me works. It says the photographer's Kim, but there is photos that come up. Mackenzie says, I know my dad just didn't edit the text yet on the website. It's his pics. And Miss Russo says, is that why it says Kim? LOL. And Mackenzie says, yeah, I was annoying him about it. So he just put the pictures in and didn't do anything to the website. So the text is just random shit. Miss Russo says, too funny. Love it. And then some time went by. A couple days later, Miss Russo says, I'm miserable. I can't imagine when you're feeling, especially because your whole world has been ripped apart. How's your leg doing? And Mackenzie says, yeah, he's just the last person this would have happened to, and only person I needed with me. My leg is broke and it has really been bothering me. And the other leg, I can stand up now so I can start physical therapy. How's Tom and Smokey? I miss them. Miss Russo says, they miss you too. Your job was a treat. Glad you're starting therapy. And Mackenzie says, if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. Thank you for caring about me. It really means a lot. Speaking of therapy, are you going to any sort of therapy? Because I have to actually do my therapy now too, and maybe that would help you too. And Miss Russo says, you're doing physical therapy, right? And I forgot that damn prom film. And Mackenzie says, both. Now physical, I started actual therapy too. It's okay, you have a lot on your mind. Did you ever look at that website for the ones my dad took? They're talking about prom pictures. And that's interesting to know here that Mackenzie started therapy. So this was September and the accident happened August 1st. And Mr. Russo says, oh, I didn't know. I'll check. What about your uncle's pics? Mackenzie says, did you need me to sign it again? And let me ask my mom because I need those. So my dad has them. He just needs to download them and put them on the website. And Mr. Russo says, I'll see the one. I'll have to go to it again. And then Mackenzie sends her a video on September 14th and says, or Miss Russo says, hey, trying to find the bees video. And Mackenzie says, I will when I wake up a little more, don't worry. And I will take a tree. And Miss Russo says, what do you mean? All the people I met at the cemetery are praying for you too. And so they must have seen each other at the cemetery or something. Mackenzie says, found it. And I will take some of the baby pine trees from Dom's. That's so sad. I'm going to skip this next page. This is the one I wanted to get to. So in this text message thread on September 19th, Mackenzie, it's going to be Dom's birthday. So let me make sure I have you guys on the right thread, on the right screen. Sorry. So you guys can follow along. I don't know if you guys follow along. Can you even see that? I hope you can see that. Sorry. Okay, there we go. So Saturday, September 17th at 8:49 p.m. Mackenzie says, what are you guys doing for his birthday? Miss Russo says, I don't know. Mackenzie says, would you want to do a birthday dinner, lunch with the Russos, or are you guys doing your own thing? And Miss Russo says, what do you mean? And Mackenzie says, like with Frank and all of them, or are you guys going to do something just you and his friends? And Miss Russo didn't respond. And Mackenzie starts sending pictures. And she says, just found this picture. Miss Russo says, so cute. I really appreciate that you send me what you send me. Again, let me know what I can do besides the laminate the prayer card. I'm getting on it. And Mackenzie says, take your time. You have a lot going on. Just let me know if you're doing anything for dinner because I want to do something with you for his birthday too. And Miss Russo doesn't respond until 2 days later. And she says, morning. And Mackenzie says, hey, Miss Russo, how are you? Miss Russo says, same as usual. And Mackenzie says, same here. Is there anything I can do for you? And Miss Russo says, no, I'm not doing too good. I'm having a bad day. And Mackenzie says, I'm just trying to think. That stuff got blown away at the funeral. There was flowers and balloons and stuff like missing. And then people kept adding to it at the graveyard at the cemetery, sorry. Mackenzie says, I don't get why people don't understand that me and Dom were in love, and she wouldn't want people to be doing this to me. He wouldn't want people to be doing this to me. Thanks for letting me know, though. I guess I'll make another one and put it in there since people want to be effing DICKS. And then Mackenzie says, I'm going to put the big one there. It's like 4 pics, and there's one of me, you, and Dom on it. Miss Russo didn't respond. And then Mackenzie says, if you didn't already go to the grave, let me know when you want to go, if you want company there. And Miss Russo says, I went this morning. That's when I told you. And Mackenzie says, oh, okay. And then that was on the 16th. And then on the 21st, Mackenzie says again, hey, have you been to the grave yet today? And Miss Russo says, yes, twice. Why? And Mackenzie says, I was going to ask if you wanted to go there with me. And Miss Russo says, sorry, I was sleeping. I'm going to go on my way home today. I can let you know. I don't know what we're going to do when it gets cold. I was freezing yesterday. And Mackenzie says, I would love to meet you there today. I'm just going to start bringing a blanket. I can bring one for you if you want to. And Miss Russo didn't respond. And then Mackenzie on Thursday, September 22nd, sends her a picture of something, and of a bunny. It says bun bun hopping in heaven. I don't know what that is, but Mackenzie, or that was Miss Russo. Sorry. Miss Russo says, this came today. And Mackenzie says, oh, that's so cute. I love it. And Miss Russo says, it is, isn't it? I'm surprised it's so nice. And Mackenzie says, I love the little heart with the halo. It's perfect. And Mackenzie says, Miss Russo says, I'm hoping the other ones come tomorrow. And then Mackenzie says, I thought you only got them for Nico and Jim. How many more did you get? And Miss Russo says, the wiener dog and the rabbit, they were all in line. I have to do Nico's ASAP. Mackenzie says, I can't wait to see them all. I don't want to bother you, and I feel bad for asking. If you guys are doing something for Dom's birthday and you don't want me to come, are you going to go to the grave and maybe we can meet there or something? I'm sorry. And Miss Russo never responds to her. And then on Friday, September 23rd, Mackenzie says, I'm going to make some shirts for Dom's birthday. Do you know what size wife beater you are? And I'm like, you really think Miss Russo is going to want to wear the wife beater? Hey, Multi, thanks for becoming a member. I appreciate you. Welcome to Mellyverse. Hey, Yasin, good to see you. Oh, so where did I leave off? So she says, do you want a wife beater? And she says, what size wife beater if you are? And I really do appreciate you. Miss Russo says, small. Mackenzie says, okay, perfect. Have you been to the grave yet? I'm here now, says Mackenzie. And then she says, I will stay here and wait. If not, I'll probably head out soon. Miss Russo says, sorry, I just got your text. I went early because it's so cold. Sorry, I missed you. How early do you get up? Mackenzie says, I wake up at like 7. I don't really sleep anymore. And then Miss Russo says, okay, you want to go by 9? And Mackenzie says, yes, I would love that. And then that was on Friday, September 23rd. On Sunday, September 25th, Mackenzie says a bunch of photos. And then on Miss Russo doesn't respond. And then again, Mackenzie says at 6:01 p.m. And I know we were talking earlier about going to his house on our anniversary, but is there any way we could like sneak myself in there so Angelo doesn't know I'm there? And I went to the medium. This guy is good. I can tell you next time I see you, or you can call me whenever. So Mackenzie went to the psychic that she talks about in the phone calls. And then Miss Russo doesn't respond. And Mackenzie sends another picture. And then Miss Russo says, that's a good one. And Mackenzie says, there's a lot of people at the grave. Are you there? And Miss Russo says, no, I am not. How you know? Mackenzie says, I drove past. Hope you had a better day. Miss Russo doesn't respond until way later. And she says, days suck, but I had a great morning with you. That angel didn't like light. I told you, Frank, so I got to move it. And Mackenzie says, I feel like Dom loved what we did for him, and I had a great time with you too. That's effed up that it didn't light up for sure. I thought it was going to. Miss Russo says, I knew it because the sun wasn't hitting it. So they were at the gravesite together. Did you move it yet? Me and Dom's 4-year anniversary is coming up next month, says Mackenzie. And then Miss Russo says, no, it was too dark last night. Mackenzie says, I need to go see what it looks like really dark. It's probably beautiful. Do you think on November 14th, I could go into Dom's house and just spend the day in there? That's our anniversary, and that would really just mean the world to me. I'm trying to give you time, but it would really help me get through the day. And Miss Russo says, the kids will never allow it. And Mackenzie says, what kids? Are you talking about his friends aren't going to allow me into his house? And Miss Russo says, no, Angela would not. And then Mackenzie doesn't respond and sends a bunch of pictures. She's such a weirdo. I know. She's like trying to force herself into Miss Russo's life. Let me see. I'm going to skip the ones where she talked. Here, I'll go. Okay, I won't skip these because you guys might want to hear them. She says, so this is a couple days later. Mackenzie says, just found this too. And it was a video of Dom. And she says, I have found one, but it's not long. He's talking about speaking Italian. And then Miss Russo doesn't respond. And then on September 26th, Miss Russo asked her, how was it, going to the grave? And Mackenzie says, it was crazy. And then she brings up the medium again, how she saw the psychic. And Miss Russo was like, what did you say? And Mackenzie says, it's easier to call you about it or tell you in person because it's a lot. It was only 15 minutes and he told me so much. I was driving and saw there's stuff going on at Dom's house with the tent. I'm not sure if anyone is moving anything out or what's going on. I'm worried people are going to move things around or take my stuff out of the house. Then she sends her the psychic she went to see, the link to her, which is so weird. This is the victim's mom. I would just think like common sense. I wanted to get to the next page where, okay, this is where Mackenzie's talking about how all of Dom's friends hate her. So on September 29th, Mackenzie's sending videos and pictures to Ms. Russo. And Ms. Russo says, oh shit, I can't look at it yet. And Mackenzie said, yeah, it's his voice. I didn't know I had it. It's really sad, but it is also kind of happy. I don't know. And Ms. Russo says, try to find more. That was so short. And Mackenzie says, I'm trying. I'm just glad I have some videos of his voice, even if it's small. Ms. Russo doesn't respond. And then Mackenzie says, how are you, Ms. Russo? I'm having a really bad night. And Ms. Russo says, me too, bad day. Mackenzie says, how are you? Ms. Russo says, sick. And on October 1st, Mackenzie says, maybe one of these days when you're up for it, I could take you to that restaurant that me and Dom would go eat sometimes. And Ms. Russo says that would be tough. Mackenzie says, okay, fine. Okay, that's fine. Then we don't need to. And Ms. Russo said, let's wait. It's real soon right now. And then Mackenzie says, do all of Dom's friends hate me now, like Blair? And Ms. Russo says, you're going to have to ask them. And Mackenzie says, I don't have anyone's phone number. I also don't want to bug them if they hate me, but none of them said anything to me, so I think they do. That's why I was just asking you so you could tell me. And sorry if I'm bugging you. I'm overthinking because I've just seen a birthday post of all you guys at Dom's dinner, and it just made me sad, but you all looked so happy. I wish everyone didn't hate me. And Miss Russo says, I don't know. No one says anything. You were at the party, though. So Miss Russo's like calling her out, like, because, you know, Mackenzie was at concerts, going to parties, smoking blunts, doing like all this stuff after the accident. And then Mackenzie says, I'm talking about the friend dinner. Miss Russo says, same night. And then skip forward to a few hours later. Mackenzie says another video. And then she sends her a basketball. I guess someone left a basketball at his gravesite the next day. So Miss Russo says, that is so rude. People were destroying things, I guess. Mackenzie says that is so rude, and Miss Russo says it doesn't look like Jared, who is Levi. I didn't even notice that today. So they were seeing people at the grave site. She keeps talking about on the next page. She asked Miss Russo how she's doing again, and Miss Russo says, I'm all right. Christopher isn't doing good, so I can worry about him and not just dwell on Dom all day. And Mackenzie says, what happened with Toph? I think they call him Toph. Oh no. And Miss Russo says, I think he's just losing his shit. Finally, I'm going to take him to the ER. Mackenzie says, oh no, that makes me sad. Miss Russo said, it's okay. He's used to it. He will be able to relax there. Mackenzie says, did he stop taking his meds? I hope he's going to be okay. That makes me so sad. Miss Russo says, yes, he did stop taking meds. Mackenzie says, oh God. And Miss Russo says, I know, we're here waiting. I'll keep you posted. Mackenzie says, I hope everything ends up okay. Which is really sad. I'm going to skip past that part. I want to get to this page. So Mackenzie's texting her about the gravesite. So it says, what happened? Okay, so let me go back to the last page. She takes pictures of the gravesite and she says, I added some stuff, and sends it to Miss Russo. And Miss Russo says, love it. Did you grab the purple balloon? I'll add some more lights to the front. And Mackenzie says, okay. He followed us there to the gas station. My dad came. And Miss Russo says, what happened? Who? Are you still there? And Miss Russo said, where is the cookie place? And Mackenzie says, it's called Crumble Cookies. And then he followed us all the way to the gas station and assaulting my friend. So from the gravesite, I believe Mackenzie went to Crumble Cookies or something, and someone was following her. And so she's telling Miss Russo about it. And Miss Russo said, where is it at? And she says, how did he assault her? And Mackenzie says, when she got in the car, he slammed the car door on her and was recording me saying 2 counts of manslaughter. And Miss Russo says, which friend? Did she get hurt? And Mackenzie says, he's just been harassing me ever since this all happened. And she says, Husney just assaulted my friend when we were at Crumble Cookies and then followed our car to the gas station, trying to follow us to see where we go. And I'm so scared. And she says, he's just been harassing me ever since all this happened, from the candle lighting to now. And when I was at the grave, bad situation happened. I don't even know if she's hurt, but he was slamming the door on her. I'm not with her anymore. She ran. And Miss Russo says, where's her car? And Mackenzie says she doesn't drive. And Miss Russo says, oh, you said she got in the car. I don't know where the cookie place is. And Mackenzie says, Kalisa was driving. It's kind of by Costco. And then he followed us all the way to this one gas station. I don't know what it's called. I'm going to get a restraining order. So I just wanted to read that last page because I thought that was interesting how Mackenzie says, I'm going to get a restraining order. I want to get to this page. So then Mackenzie says, I know, I'm just telling you what's happened. Miss Russo says, did you find your other friend? Who was that? I don't know. Mackenzie says, I don't know where she went. She just ran away. And then nothing happens. And then Miss Russo says, on October 5th, what was the store that you were going to, the beauty store where you got earrings? And so they're talking about earrings. I'm going to skip to this part where Mackenzie says, she's texting Miss Russo and she says, I found Blair. This was on October 9th. She says, I found Blair's Instagram and he blocked me. If you don't hate me, I don't understand why they all hate me. Mackenzie said that to Miss Russo. And Miss Russo says, I don't know. I don't know how to do Instagram. And Mackenzie says, I know I could help you if you want to, but I was just telling you, I don't understand why they hate me if you don't hate me. I just don't get why everybody has to hate me. It just makes me so sad. And then Mackenzie says, I'm really stressed out about moving my things or making it look different than it was when Dom lived there. Oh, she says, I just don't get why everybody has to hate me. It just makes me hate myself even more. I wish everybody would just not hate me. And Miss Russo says, I don't know any of it. And Mackenzie says, you're letting people in his house now? And Miss Russo says, no, I am not. Mackenzie says, I seen 2 people in his studio when I was driving home last night. The light was on and I seen 2 people. Miss Russo says, I'll find out. And Mackenzie says, I'm really stressed out about people moving my things or making it look different than it was when Dom lived there. My top priority is just being able to go inside of that house and just be there for the day. It hurts that everybody but me is allowed in the house. It already hurts seeing all of his friends there at night spending time with you, but it hurts even worse seeing I'm the only one not allowed in his house that I spent the most time in. And Miss Russo says, nothing is being touched. And Mackenzie says, we don't know that for sure. I need to get in there for multiple things that I have in there. I just don't know why I'm not trusted to be in the house. I spent 90% of my time and slept at every night. I wonder what she's trying to get in there. I wonder if she was trying to get substances that they had in there. And then that was October. Okay, so then Mackenzie says, I really can't tell if you hate me or not. I feel like if you didn't hate me, you would have let me come over there or be there for you, or you would tell everybody that they shouldn't hate me. But I feel like you just don't like me, and I wish you could just tell me so I could stop bugging you. And then Miss Russo says, this is all emotional. I can't tell anyone to do anything. I don't hate you. Gosh, I'm just having a tough time with just not having my son. Pause. Mackenzie, like, chill out, girl. You're crazy. You're toxic. You're harassing Miss Russo after the freaking crash. Okay, so then Mackenzie says, you can't tell them, but you could tell me that you don't hate me. And it's hard for me too. I'm also having a tough time. He was the love of my life, and I spent my last 4 years every day with him pretty much. I just don't understand why I'm the only one not allowed inside his house. I know he wouldn't want this. I didn't just lose Dom, lost my whole other family, and that's you guys. And Miss Russo says, no one has gone in but me or Angelo just to fix things. My family will never be the same. I lost a part of my heart. I'm sorry that people aren't receptive to you, but these boys died at your hands. You have to understand that you think I want things this way. My life is hell and I'm broken. Mackenzie says, I did not do this on purpose. If I knew any of this would happen, I would have made sure it was me that died. I would think you would understand, but good to know that you think it's all my fault. I don't understand that. Nothing is ever going to be the same. We're in the same boat. We both lost extremely important people to us. And I seen Angelo and somebody else in the studio again last night. So I know that it has to be more than just you and Angelo in the house. Everybody's life is hell and everybody is broken over this. It's not just you and Angelo. And I wish I could take that pain away from you guys and just make it so it's you and me only. I try so hard to tell you guys that I would never do this on purpose, and I thought you would know. And Miss Russo didn't respond until what day was that? That was the 13th. So then she responds the next day. Did you take the green pick? And Mackenzie says, could you please try to help me get people to see that I didn't do this on purpose? Seriously hurts my soul that anyone thinks I can sleep, that I can't, anyone thinks that, and I can't sleep knowing that. I don't want to lose any more of my family. And Miss Russo says, no one says that directly. I just said looking from the other side. It's hard to explain anything when you said you don't remember any of it. Mackenzie says, I know everybody thinks that, especially Angelo, and I care so much about him even though he hates me. You guys are my family. I've just been having a rough couple days. I'm trying really hard to talk to everybody. Miss Russo says, it's been really bad on me too. Mackenzie says, can we just please try to fix this? I know it's never going to be the same, but I want to be able to come spend time with you guys. I wish I could bring you guys closer and tell you what happened. If I could remember anything, I would tell you. And Miss Russo says, what's the last thing you remember? Mackenzie says, I remember turning onto the street and then my vision fades to black. It really kills me not being able to remember anything. I promise you I would tell you. I've been asking my therapist why I don't remember, and she said it's because of trauma, but I'm going to try to go get my hypnotized and make myself remember. And remember that hypnotized part because they go over that in the calls, the jail calls. And Miss Russo says that would be awesome. Better for you too. And that was on the 14th, the 16th. So that was all Miss Russo said. And then on the 16th, Mackenzie said, I know I'm not the only one allowed in the house, not allowed in the house, but I actually need to get in there for my belongings. My ID and laptop are in there and important belongings. I know it's hard for you, but I really do need to get in there. That's where I spent my time and a lot of my belongings are there. I don't know why you think I would ever do this on purpose either. I understand I was a driver, but I would have done anything to prevent this. He's the love of my life and my best friend. If I could remember, I would tell everybody, but that's just how trauma works. I wish I could bring you peace. And Miss Russo said, I never said that. And Mackenzie says, then can I please just come to Dom's house? It really hurts that I'm not allowed to be there. And that was on October 16th. And I believe Mackenzie kept texting Miss Russo and Miss Russo was ignoring her or blocked her because on Tuesday, October 25th, Mackenzie says, are you getting my messages? And Miss Russo says, I will get your things together. Sorry, things have been rough. Mackenzie says, you don't know where all of my things are. I'm not allowed to just go get my things? ? I understand that it's been rough for me as well. I just don't understand why this has to be such an issue for me to go in the place that I spent all my time at. I was in there probably the most out of everybody except him. And I also want to make sure that all my things were not messed with because I know where everything was when I left it there. And Miss Russo still didn't reply to any of that. And Mackenzie says, do you just want to talk on the phone? Because I feel like this is a 30-minute conversation. And Mackenzie says, and I promise you, I'm not trying to offend you or be rude. It's just really bothering me and causing me not to sleep. And Miss Russo says, over your head for what? And Mackenzie says, do you think I could come into the house this week? No response. And then she says, I really do need my purse and my other belongings. It's extremely important. Just checking in to see if you got this. And Mackenzie says, do you want to, when she says this is a 30-minute conversation, Miss Russo doesn't respond. And then Mackenzie says, do you want me to just call you tomorrow? No response until 3 days later. Miss Russo says, this time makes me remember you and Dom digging through my boxes for costumes. Are you dressing up at all? So it was Halloween when she dressed up as a blunt and what was the other thing? A corpse, I think. And Mackenzie says, yeah, this time of year is hard for me. Sucks without him. Me and Rosie are going to drink and Zaza Dom's song. And that's where that conversation ends that we had access to. So I think it's really uncomfortable how she keeps harassing Miss Russo. And she's just acting like so, like she really doesn't think she did anything wrong. And she's just like, forgive me. I want to spend time with you guys. I think she has something weird going on with like attachment and Dom's family. And we know at this point, they're starting to find out. They're doing the investigation. So Miss Russo knows that at this point that it was intentional, if you may. And hello, everyone that I missed. I'm so sorry if I didn't say hi. I can't believe after taking her son, she continues to harass this mother. Exactly. She's unbelievable. Right. Okay. So next document. That was the end of the threads with Miss Russo. So now I'm going to read through the conversation with her dad, and I want to pull up this document. This is the estimate. This is an estimate for the wall, mind you, that Mackenzie crashed into 100 miles per hour, just about. I thought this was interesting. You're like, Melly, why are you showing us how much it costs to replace the building or fix the building? I thought this was interesting. So this is an estimate for the wall repair. Can you see? Can you see how much that was? $219,000. $219,954,000.13. That is how much the wall, it cost the county or whatever, whoever was fixing the wall, to fix the wall, the hole that Mackenzie made. I'm just shook. $19,000. Okay, you guys are like, Millie, you're being nosy now. You're pulling up the estimates. Oops. Okay. This next document, I had to show it. I was just like, wow, that stupid mistake, whether it was for jealousy, whether she was trying to unalive herself, whether she was trying to unalive them intentionally, cost so much, right? People's life, people's happiness. $219,000 for the wall repair. I mean, Mackenzie. And she's in there in the jail, just talking about whatever she wants, getting them honey buns, kissing them girls. I mean, I just can't with her. Okay. So this next document is from the Strongsville Police Department. And this document, I wanted to get through it. It's only a few pages. But before we move on to the rest of the text messages, this was labeled Rosie Graham Drug Investigation, signed. Rosie is one of Mackenzie's good friends. I also have those text messages. It's a lot though, so I was going to read through them before I showed you guys. I didn't know if you guys, because a lot of it is just like talking about going out, talking about stuff, so let me go through them, but we're going to read this document today. Date is October 10th, 2022. So the text messages. So this was on October 10th, and we just read text messages from October, the first week of October with Miss Russo. So they must have already known what was going on for sure here. So it says summary. On July 31st, 2022, at approximately 06:15 hours, Southwest Emergency Dispatch Center received a 911 call from Tom, reporting a vehicle had run into the business at the intersection of Alameda Drive and Progress Drive. The caller did not stop and was no longer in the area at the time the call was made. Strongsville police and fire personnel were dispatched to the area. Galassi and his trainee Zelinsky were the first units to arrive. Galassi reported a vehicle split in half and requested EMS since 3 occupants were reportedly unconscious. While attempting to gain entry into the vehicle, Galassi noticed the unconscious driver, a female later identified as Mackenzie Shirilla, and she was breathing. Responding officers gained access into the Toyota Camry, which was bearing an Ohio registration, via the driver's side door. Shirilla was sitting in the driver's seat with her seatbelt on and her head wedged in an area close to the center console, thus trapping her. Her Toyota was registered to Natalie Shirilla. Strongsville Fire Department personnel arrived shortly thereafter and mechanically extracted the 2 occupants who were still alive. One of the passengers, Dominic Russo, 2 occupants who were still alive. One of the passengers, Dominic Russo, was deceased upon arrival and was not removed from the vehicle by the medics. I wonder if that was a mistake, because it says Dom was deceased and was not removed from the vehicle. The second passenger was later identified as Davion. It was reported he had a weak pulse upon extraction, but passed away in the back of the ambulance. Oh, wow. I think I knew that, but I hadn't read this report. Mackenzie Shirilla, age 17, was extricated out of the driver's seat. When asked what her name was by Galassi, she responded, Mackenzie. She was loaded into an ambulance and transported to the Life Flight helicopter that landed in the parking lot of Progress Drive. While en route, an unidentified fire medic located a clear plastic bag containing mushrooms and a digital scale on her person. The items were handed to Valco, who was present inside the ambulance. Shirilla was subsequently flown to Metro Health Medical Center in Cleveland for further treatment. The Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner took custody of Flanagan and Russo's remains. The vehicle was towed to Center Towing's lot. Throughout the course of the next 2 months, they investigated her. So July, August, September, yeah. So Ms. Russo definitely knew something was up. Throughout the next 2 months, investigators would identify several instances in which Rosie in conjunction with Mackenzie, would knowingly or otherwise conduct trafficking transactions. The following evidence was obtained and reviewed and prepared by myself. If you go back and watch my previous lives, I do have the body cam footage and the photos of everything that was fun. She had money, she had mushrooms, she had a scale, she had, I think, Mary Jane, and I forget what else was on her. They weren't found in her system. She's just bad-ish. I think they found THC in her system. I can't remember. Her mother is a psycho as she is. That's true, Michelle. I don't remember if they found the shrooms or the Mary Jane in her system. We'll have to pull up the toxicology report. But let's continue with this one. On August 9th, 2022, after having previously obtained a search warrant, investigators received the dump of Shirilla's cellular phone. Her phone contained 91,000 images, 15,000 video files, and several hundred text message threads within the device. Now, I don't have all of that, but I have close to probably half of it. I have all of her TikTok and Snapchats. I need to go through them and see what I can play on here for you guys. If not, I might add them onto my Patreon, which is being worked on. And on my Patreon, you guys will be able to get all of the documents, all of the body cam footage, all of everything that I share and get for my true crime lives. So there's a lot. And a lot of them are her smoking out of the bong, doing all kinds of things. So, you know, YouTube rules I have to abide by. I break them all the time, but I try to be good. Okay, upon conducting the search of the device, I began with any data from the 24 hours prior to the crash. During this initial search, I located a text message thread with Rosie, who was previously known to be at the party with Mackenzie hours prior to the crash. A review of the thread revealed the following. Instant messages, or IMs, are a similar form of communication to standard text messaging, but instant messaging with Apple iPhones is conducted from device to device directly rather than through cell towers, such as standard SMS text messaging. Instant messaging through Apple iPhones is typically thought to be more secure by users due to the fact that these messages cannot be intercepted by law enforcement. Upon going through the above mentioned messages, I identified several conversations in which Rosie and Mackenzie are engaging in drug trafficking activities. The first such example of this occurred on July 10th, 2022. Below is a transcript from a portion of this conversation. Before I start this conversation, she didn't really, I think, get charged for drug trafficking. But I feel like they probably were like, why charge her with that? She murdered these two boys, you know, but I don't know. I know they added some time. She got like 12 years for something. I can't remember the exact time, but if she had all this stuff on her person and then they have proof of her doing this, they probably should have charged her with trafficking as well, right? And I'm saying trafficking because of YouTube. They don't like that word, I don't think. Okay, so let's continue. Shirilla says, I'll bring a fatty blunt. This is July 10th. You gonna meet me, some of my girls too, from Barbie Zone. I can scoop you also. You down? And Rosie says, yeah, sorry, I was snoozed. Mackenzie says, okay, bet, I'm excited. I'm also talking to Dom about tripping. And Rosie says, same. And then Mackenzie says, tripping. Oh, because she did a typo. And Rosie says, oh my God, yes. Mackenzie says, bruh, are you with anyone? And Rosie says, I'm going to be with Bubba soon. I've been sleeping all day since I didn't feel good earlier. And Mackenzie says, bruh, Dom is being weird about tripping. Tripping is, they were tripping on mushrooms, probably. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Natasha says Bobby's On is a modeling agency. And then Mindful Spirit says the way she was texting sounded like she was under the influence. You guys, if you guys saw all the Snapchat videos I have, oh my goodness. I think she was smoking literally like all day, every day. There's so many videos of her just joints, bongs. There's one with her and a bunch of shrooms on her mouth, and she's like taking a picture of it. It's pretty wild. Okay, so Mackenzie says, bruh, Dom is being weird about tripping because he doesn't know Nina or her boyfriend. Like, I feel bad even saying this because it feels wrong. So I don't know WTF to do because I want to with all of you. So it sounds like Dom didn't want to trip or do whatever they were doing. And Rosie says, oh my God, it's okay. Yeah, I don't know then, but I get it. And Mackenzie says, what should we do? Rosie says, I don't know. Mackenzie says, yeah, I'm mad AF at him. He ruins everything. And Rosie says, it's okay. We'll figure something out. This was like 20 days before the crash. And Mackenzie says, I mean, I want to trip, but I don't know what to do. Rosie says, me and Bubba are going to go camping tomorrow. We got to buy some shrooms from Dom. Mackenzie says, pull up. We got you later. It's an oil day, 7:10, dab day. And Graham says, Rosie says, we pulling up. Mackenzie says, what's your ETA? Rosie says, we're smoking a bowl right now. It takes like 5 minutes. Then we coming. Let me put in GPS. And Rosie says, 13 minutes. In the above conversation, Mackenzie mentions that she has been talking with Dom about tripping. Is it tripping or tipping? Am I seeing things? Oh no. I thought it was tripping. Maybe that was a typo. About tripping, a term commonly associated with the use of psychedelic drugs and mushrooms or LSD. Shirilla states that Dom is being weird about tripping, then states he ruins everything. As the conversation continues, Rosie states, me and Bubba, who is Landon, are going camping tomorrow. We got to buy some from Dom. Mackenzie replies with, pull up, we got you later. Based on training and experience, I know this conversation to be representing Shirilla acting as a middleman for Rosie, as Rosie informs Mackenzie that she and Bubba will need to get substances from Dom. Rosie already knows that she can order with Mackenzie, who will make the deal happen by obtaining the substances from Dom and providing them to Graham and Turner, which is Rosie and Landon. These actions on behalf of Mackenzie represent trafficking activities. This conversation continues into July 11th, as seen in the portion of the transcript. Graham says, Rosie says, can I come pick up Shroomy soon? Mackenzie says, I think it's in South America. And Rosie says, OMFG, yes, of course. Mackenzie says, yes, let me tell Dom. Rosie says, we got to go on a trip. Mackenzie says, he just got out of the bathroom, LMFAO. I'm about to ask. I'll let you know when to come. Rosie says, okay. And Mackenzie says, it's $40 and come through to my house. Rosie says, can I also get a cue of BUD? Bud? And then says, oh, the detective notes, loved shows up on Apple iPhone. Oh, so Rosie loved it. And then Mackenzie says, I got you too, girl. I'm sorry, Mackenzie says, I got you too, girl. And Rosie says, bet. Mackenzie says, what kind of bud? Rosie says, thank you. The best plug. And Mackenzie says, do you want the low or the higher price? Rosie says, the low. And then Mackenzie says, bet. Rosie says, bet. And then Mackenzie says, you should make a TikTok vlog of you tripping. LOL. And then Rosie says, LMFAO. I want to so bad, but my mom had TikTok and I blocked her, but her weird ass would make another account. Do you want me to come now? And Mackenzie says, shake my head. I wish I could post shit like that too. My mom follows me too. I don't know why Mackenzie cares. Her mom, we know her mom. We don't personally know her, but we know how she be acting. Rosie says, right, LOL. Mackenzie says, how far are you? And then Rosie says, but your mom's chill. I'm at Bubba's. So right by the high school. Mackenzie says, okay, pull up. Rosie says, bet. Mackenzie says, also $50 for the queue, but he said he's going to have to give you a little more than a queue. Rosie says, bet, thank you. Do you have 10 and change? All I have is 20s. We know enough. Exactly, Michelle. And then Rosie says, actually, never mind. I got it. Mackenzie says, oh, my bad. I didn't even see you say that. I could have. Rosie says, it's okay. Bubba has 10s. Mackenzie says, okay, just let me know when to come. I'm just going to be waiting in my driveway. Rosie says, okay, coming. And Mackenzie says, bet, I'm just in the driveway. And then going back to the officer's report, he says, in the above conversation, Rosie is seen asking Mackenzie if she can come pick up the shroomies soon. Mackenzie advises, yes, let me tell Dom. Mackenzie then provides Rosie with the price being $40 and states to come through. Rosie likes Mackenzie's comment, which is a feature on Apple iPhone. This feature is utilized to acknowledge a quick message. Mackenzie then says, I got you. Graham says, what kind of bud? So he's basically proving that she's selling substances. Also $50 for the quarter, an amount of Mary Jane being purchased, but he said he's going to have to give you a little more than a queue. At the end of the conversation, Rosie is saying, coming, to which Mackenzie replies, I'm in the driveway. So then he says she's acting like the middleman. A plug is a common slang term for rug dealer. By using this term, Rosie and Mackenzie are acknowledging that Mackenzie is acting as Rosie's rug dealer. As both the deal continues, Rosie also orders Mary Jane in addition to the shroomies, both of which Mackenzie states she will get from Dominic. On July 14th, 2022, another conversation between Rosie and Mackenzie ensues, during which both parties begin discussing tripping and going to the carnival. So Mackenzie says, I want to go to the fair that day, on Friday. With you. And Rosie says, Friday, I'm tripping with Bubba again because his parents are going out of town. You can come over and trip if you want with Dom. And yeah, I was going to go to the fair Friday too. Sorry, Rosie girl. Don't mean to put you on blast, but this is public information from the Strongsville Police Department. Don't come for me. I'm just here reporting the facts of the matter. The word bet is annoying. Bet. Text messages between, yes. Okay. So then Mackenzie says, we wanted to trip at the carnival. Rosie says, maybe while I'm tripping. Haha. Mackenzie says, we should all trip. Rosie says, yes. Mackenzie says, LMAO, yes. Okay, we down. Bro, you about to see me geeking. Rosie says, we just need a ride, or we should just walk. Bubba's is right by the high school. Mackenzie says, I'm dead. It's going to be funny AF. Or no, Rosie says, I'm dead. It's going to be funny AF. And then Mackenzie says, we can scoop. Rosie says, at the effing carnival. That's so funny. Okay, bet. And Mackenzie says, bro, euphoria moment. And Rosie says, no, literally. Mackenzie says, I'm excited. We need to drip. And Rosie says, I'm kind of scared it's going to be too much. If it is, I'm just going to be looking like a crackhead, LMFAO. With all the people there, I'm probably going to be geeking. And Mackenzie says, that's why we should let it hit at home, then see how we're feeling it. Rosie says, yes, true. We should at Bubba's. Like none of his parents will be there. Mackenzie says, yeah, if it's chill, I'm down. Yes. Rosie says, bet. Paul's gonna too. Mackenzie says in caps, bet. OMG, even better. And Rosie says, right, it's gonna be fire. And Mackenzie says, I'm excited. So in the above conversation, again, Mackenzie is telling Rosie she wants to go to the fair on Friday. Rosie tells Mackenzie that she and Bubba are planning on tripping because Bubba's parents are out of town. Rosie then invites Mackenzie and Dom over to trip with them. The two discuss how much fun tripping is. as a carnival will be, but they are scared to be around so many people while high. Mackenzie and Ram concoct to use the rugs and see how they feel prior to going to the fair. Rosie then advises Mackenzie that Paul Burlinghouse, and he was in one of the interviews with the detectives, if you haven't seen that, as the two parties talk via instant message, they discuss going live on social media, but that their moms could watch. This conversation began at 2:26 p.m. On July 15th, Rosie and Mackenzie again continue a conversation surrounding and obtaining the shroomies. As the two converse about using the shroomies, Rosie states, quote unquote, Paul said he's going to take under a gram, to which Mackenzie says, I don't think he should. And then she says, do you know what? I'm going to text him. And Rosie replies and says, I told him at least 1.5. He's like, no. This continues until Mackenzie tells Rosie that she's convinced Paul to take more. Based on training and experience, this conversation now involves Mackenzie and Rosie planning to use shroomies along with Russo and Turner, as well as Burlinghouse, who they have also convinced to use more than he originally wanted. This is how the conversation goes. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. She was charged with the murder of her boyfriend. The way you see shroomies. And the role model was Euphoria. So bad. You guys, can you please take a minute? Mackenzie was 17, almost 18 at the time of the crash. So you guys have to think, like, how old was she when she started doing all of this? Because this is a problem and it didn't just happen overnight. And she's been doing it for years, it seems like. And at 17, you know, I mean, I don't know what you were doing at 17. Don't tell me if you've been bad. But I feel like the parents, and we know Natalie Shirilla, we know what she's like and how enabling she is and how I think she wants to live vicariously through Mackenzie and be like the young, cool mom. You know, I feel like that's who Natalie Shirilla is trying to be. And I'm not here to be a bully or knock anyone down, but from the jail calls and everything we've seen, I am not a fan of her mother. And you can think otherwise, that's fine. But I don't know. I think that's interesting. Okay, so Rosie says, I think Davion is coming too. LMFAO, do you care? Mackenzie says, bet. Rosie says, Davion's the one in the car too. Rosie says, also, I don't know how many shroomies I need because me and Bubba tripped like 4 days ago. But yeah, bring enough for all of us. We should have all cash. Bring enough for Paul and Dave. I'm excited. FUCK, except my mom and stepdad haven't gone yet. I don't know if they're still going. I'm going to pass out or run away if I see my mom. LOL. Mackenzie says, how much do you and Bubba want? Rosie says, I don't know. I took 2 and he took 3 last time, but since it was 4 days ago, does that mean I need more or I can take the same amount? And Rosie says, maybe 2 for me. Mackenzie says, probably a little more. Rosie says, man, then I don't know. Mackenzie says, maybe 2.5, 3.5. Rosie says, whatever you think is good for me. LMFAO. Sure. And Mackenzie says, have you took over 2 Gs? Rosie says, I think I took 2.5 last time and 2 the first time. Mackenzie says, oh, then just do 2.5. At least can't go wrong with it. Was your trip too strong on 2.5? And Rosie says, we got to go get some Kit Kats too. LMFAO. Okay, bet. It was fine. Mackenzie says, yeah, then you should be fine to take that much or even more. Rosie says, I tripped balls, but it was nice. I think the first time was the most because I was confused. Yes. Mackenzie says, LMAO, bet. We'll get you right. And then Rosie says, yeah, just come to Bubba's and we'll take them here, ? And then go to the carnival. And Mackenzie says, yes. When should we come? And Rosie says, I'm still waiting for Bub to get home. Then we're going to get this car. So maybe in 30. Mackenzie says, okay, bet. Let me know. I never want to hear that word again. Bet. Rosie says, okay, Bubba said yes to 3.5 and Davion wants 2.5. So Davion, who was a victim in the car crash, was also trying to get shroomies. Mackenzie says, how much does Paul want? Rosie says, he said he told you. I don't know. What did he say when you talked to him? And bring what you're going to eat with it. I'm going to get myself a Kit Kat at get-go right now. Mackenzie says, yeah, we're coming. We're about to go back home right now. The carnival is packed. And Rosie says, oh shit, LMFAO. Okay, wait 1 sec. Bubba's picking up Dave. Mackenzie says, we're not coming to your house right now. We're leaving the carnival. I don't know Bubba's address. Rosie says it's on Raccoon Trail. Gives the address. And Mackenzie says, okay, bet. Rosie says, I'm at the light by the carnival right now. And then the two discuss driving from the carnival. Mackenzie says, how much do you want? Rosie says 2.5. I saw your sparkly license plate and I knew. And it's 20 good for the 2.5. I'm at Bubba's now, so can you come? Mackenzie says, bet. The officer says, this is what, back to the report. On July 15th, plans came into action as seen above. As Rosie advised Mackenzie, I think Davion Flanagan is coming too. To which Shirilla responds, bet. The two parties discuss how many shroomies Graham and Turner are going to need since they tripped 4 days prior. Remember, Graham is Rosie. Also, Rosie also advises Mackenzie, but yeah, bring enough for all of us. Graham says, yeah, okay, so he's just recounting that. I point out several levels to the possession and trafficking and the usage of the shrooms. Rosie orders 10 grams for Shirilla, who is identified as obtaining them from Russo. Based on this, both Mackenzie and Rosie are acting as middlemen by ordering, obtaining, and providing these substances to others. Money is being exchanged, and none of the rugs appear to be provided for free, indicating that Mackenzie is trafficking to Rosie. Based on this information, Rosie and the rest are now hosting a drug premises at which trafficking and usage are being permitted. At this time, Mackenzie is and was underage, being only 17 years of age. Thank you, Gaming Status. Oh, good to see you, Natasha. Thank you for being here, love. Grandma is Rosie. No, Rosie's a friend. Okay, so let's continue this conversation. So it says the pattern of activity continues with several conversations about Shirilla obtaining, providing substances for others to smoke. This is on July 30th. So this is the night before the accident. Oh, wow. So Mackenzie says, are Paul's parents going to be there? Rosie says, no, they gone. Mackenzie says, do you think it's cool to trip there? Rosie says, yes. Mackenzie says, okay, I'm trusting you. Rosie says, his parents aren't tweaks like Bubba. They would probably let him have people over. Mackenzie says, does he have outside we can sit or lay in? Oh, never mind. I remember Paul's backyard. Rosie says, big backyard. You were at his grad party. Yes. Mackenzie says, okay, cool. I'll keep you updated. Bet. Mackenzie says, what are you doing? Rosie says, we almost back. Also, can we give you like $40 for some BUD too? And Mackenzie says, we're somewhere else right now, but I don't know if we're going to come yet. Rosie says, oh no, you should come. I'm going to be at Paul's by 11. Could we still buy it off Dom? If you guys don't want to trip, you should just come hang out and smoke for a little or whatever. Mackenzie says, okay, bet. Do you need? We might come. Rosie says, yes. Me and Nina and Bubba need them and some bud. Do you not want to trip? Did you guys already today at the zoo? Mackenzie says, we're not sure because it's already so late. Dom says, and no, we're going to, but we didn't. Yeah, we can give you guys that. Rosie says, bet. And I was going to say, it looked funny AF on your story, but you should put to Paul's at 11. I can always, pick you up to Paul's at 11. I can always pick you up if you guys don't want to. Mackenzie says, we in Parma, but I'll let you know when I'm back. Rosie says, okay. Mackenzie says, we on the way home. Rosie says, bet. Mackenzie says, we're probably going to come. Rosie says, okay, cool. Rosie says, we want $40 worth. Baba wants 3. I want 2.5. Nina wants 1.5. And Paul wants 2.5. Nina claims she just wants AG. Mackenzie says, bruh, tell her more. Rosie says, she said 1.5. Okay, bet. Rosie says, we're all at Paul's. Mackenzie says, I'm about to come there. Rosie says, okay. And then they exchange addresses. And the police report says, Mackenzie is asking Rosie if Paul's parents are going to be there. Mackenzie then asks, do you think it's cool if we trip there? They begin making plans and discuss Paul's backyard and having enough room for everyone to hang out. Rosie eventually asks Mackenzie, can we give you like $40? Shirilla and Rosie talk about Russo at the zoo and what their plans are. Mackenzie eventually advises her that Russo's coming to Burling, also one of their other friends. Rosie then advises, so we want $40 worth based on the training experience. Again, Mackenzie is dealing substances. This order for 9.5 grams was located on Mackenzie. So this is what she had on her person when the crash happened. 9.5 grams. Wow. Mackenzie was extracted from her vehicle following this crash. The shroomies were located on her, and that was 6.91 grams, indicating that someone at that party that night used or obtained. So I know that they said, I can't remember. I feel my humble opinion, yes, she was selling substances. My humble opinion is I think they all did this stuff that night. Whether that plays a factor into Mackenzie crashing her car, I don't know. But I feel like they were all at the party. They would have all done something, right? I have to pull up the report again. I don't remember that part. So somebody used 2.5 grams. The shroomies located on Mackenzie's person were sent to the forensic laboratory for chemical analysis, which determined to be 6.91 grams with a probability of 95.4% certainty. Below is a portion of the laboratory report. We have already seen this report, though. I had it already in the previous live. So she just had shrooms on her. As stated above, Rosie refers to Mackenzie as her plug, and Mackenzie acknowledges this. Mackenzie is obtaining the substances from the actual dealer. Both Mackenzie and Graham are facilitating the actions by placing the order, collecting money, conducting the transaction of distributing among friends and acquaintances. This behavior is trafficking, and Mackenzie and Rosie violated these crimes. Violated these crimes in the above documented conversations. And that was October 12th, 2022. I just thought that was a very interesting report that I had not read. Let me see what else I have for you guys. Okay, let's get through text messages with her dad. How about that? Actually, there's 3 pages of text messages with Dom that I wanted to. This is from before we start the Dom reading, the big thread of text messages. This is just 3 text messages of her with Dominic. So on July 17th, 2022, Mackenzie says to Dom, I will never forgive you for this, and I will never forgive your mom either. Clearly, she only cares about your life and if you're going to jail, which is actually the most sad thing ever. You're too mature to even work any of this out. You can't even apologize for telling me to shut up, so you definitely can't apologize for doing any of this. Now I have to look forward to you ending my life anytime we argue. Like, how am I not supposed to be afraid? So she was texting this to Dom. That's interesting. Why does she say that to him? And it makes me question, like what I said before, it takes two to tango. So I'm not sitting here placing all the blame on Mackenzie, even though she is to blame. But I feel like RIP Dom, but he obviously participated in this relationship, right? And he obviously participated in the selling, and he was obviously, a victim in this. But I also, a lot of people think that maybe Dom was also pretty toxic, and maybe there are things that we don't know, which I'm sure, since we don't know everything that happens in every relationship, even through police reports. Yes, she is a gaslighter. I think she's very toxic, very abusive, verbally abusive. And where does she get that from? You know what I mean? Like, did she just come out of the womb and suddenly she's like an abusive, toxic girlfriend? No, she learned that from her environment and people around her and what she sees. And I feel like the parents are to blame here. Natalie, and I believe his name is Steve. Maybe I'm getting him confused with the Idaho 4 case. I can't remember. But like, she's just toxic. I mean, maybe her parents aren't, but they are, from what we know with the mom. I'm just curious where she learned this behavior and why. Then Dom says, Kenzie, you effing tripping is all I must say. Mackenzie says, LOL, in caps. Dom says, you threaten to end my life all the time. There it is. There it is. I'm clapping for the police department because they got the Celebrite data. He literally says, Dom says, July 17th, like 14 days prior to the crash, Dom says, you threaten to end my life all the time. Mackenzie says, it's okay. All I care about you is trying to end my life and put it in your hand on the steering wheel and try to end it. Nobody does that to somebody they love, Mackenzie says. So here, clearly, Dom and Mackenzie have both been in an instance of DV. They weren't physically touching each other. That's still DV that's a form of it, right? Why is Dom putting hands on this? This was when the accident happened, or the situation happened, where he was like calling his mom, come get me, come get me. Mackenzie's being crazy. But there's another side. There's always another side, right? And I'm not going to knock Mackenzie and be like, you're wrong, you're crazy, you're toxic. Anything you say is irrelevant. I don't believe that. Most of it is. But I believe that Dom was toxic too. As much as people don't want to hear me say that, I'm going to say it because it's very much true. She wasn't toxic by herself. She probably was. But Dom, in this instance, played a role in that relationship. Do I think he was a victim later? Yes, I do think that Mackenzie took it another notch. I do think she was mentally ill. So she says, nobody does that to somebody they love. So that thread specifically from the 31,000 pages I have, that was specifically singled out by the police department because the investigators, because they wanted that proof that they were in a toxic relationship and that they both had tried to do something to each other in a car. Let's pull up. I'm going to get through the text messages with the dad. There's a lot. There's 277 pages. So I'm almost thinking maybe, okay, let's get started. Let me see what you guys are saying. When was this? Yeah, Abuelita, was like 2 weeks before. But doesn't really matter what was doing. She was psychopath who, yes, you're right, Michelle. Yes. New here, what is your channel? Hi, I'm Melanie, True Crime. All things good time. I don't know if they cheated. All she cares about is herself, says Brandy. She does. She's very narcissistic. You should do one in Spanish. Also, when she was outside Dom's house threatening to crash his car. Yes, threatening to key his car. I do have that up on my video, so make sure you guys go check it out. I also have 2 calls with the detective, between Mackenzie and the detective and her mom. Nobody has those. And if they did, I know some people got them from my channel, but definitely go check those out. I blame the girl for being toxic with someone who makes her toxic. Always take someone's word when they're saying they're going to do something. I agree with that. I have a feeling they also had an argument in the car during the accident. Yes. I am so glad someone pointed out Mini Forest Spirit. Thank you for pointing that out. I agree. I think there was fighting. I think there was something going on that night. I do. I really do believe that. Mackenzie says, I don't feel, or Mackenzie. Oh my God. Abuelita says, I don't feel bad anymore. She doesn't deserve, especially because she's not accountable. Where do you find this stuff? If you don't know, now you know. We have all the receipts here. She was selfish and toxic. No remorse. They were both on drugs and were both abusing each other, sadly. Agreed. Toxic. Dom was being abused. I believe that. Probably BPD. I was thinking that. I really was. Bet. You better stop saying bet. Plus, after she got out of the hospital, she went to Halloween party. Yeah, she did. Okay, let's start the conversations with her dad, and then we'll probably have to finish those ones. You guys, I got so many. Tell everybody, tell your grandmommy. I got all of it. I got all the tea. Everybody knows that, but I do got all the tea for the text messages. Subscribe. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Okay. Yeah. Did you hear the mother defended during the impact statements? Yes. Please watch my playlist on Mackenzie Shirilla. Watch all my playlists. Watch all my videos. Just do it. They're good. Maybe the first ones when I first started my channel, not so good. But for the most part, they're pretty good. Okay, so this is with her dad. So some of these are really old, but we're just following the conversation. We're just seeing what it was like, what they were like. So from Mackenzie to her dad, she says, this was in 2020. So we're going back. Exactly. Be Nike and just do it. Okay. So Mackenzie says, are you up? Is mom up? Can I stay till 2:30? Dad, can you make me warm milk? That's what Mackenzie said. And then her dad says, sorry, just seeing this, you still want milk? What is going on with the milk? I'm trying to think what her dad's name is. I think it is Steve. Isn't it? Can someone correct me? I can't remember. Oh no. Oh wait, yes, it is, I think. Steve and Natalie Shirilla, her parents. Okay. So the dad says, sorry, just seeing this. You want milk? What the hell? And then Mackenzie says, can you answer? Can you make me warm milk? And her dad says, okay. Thank you, Kat Randall says, if I'm awake and online Melly is the best. Forget about it. Yes, it is, hun. What the hell does she want milk for? Okay, so this was 2020, so she was probably like 15 years old. The dad says, okay. Steve says, okay. Mackenzie says, thanks. When you come in, be quiet. And then her dad says the next day, worst hamburger ever. And sends a picture of a hamburger. Mackenzie says, ew. And then her dad says, one of the kids wasn't eating it. So I asked why. He said they're terrible. So I tried one and he was correct. And then some. LOL. Mackenzie says, WTF is that? And then Mackenzie says a picture of something. Her fingers? I can't see what it is. Oh, it's a seed. And she says, seed. And her dad says, you be careful. Watch what you drink and smoke. Call me first if there's a problem so I can come help. Boom. There it is. Proof he allowed this behavior when she was just 15 years young. Yep. Right here. What you drink and smoke, call me first. Mackenzie says, okay, XOXO. Her dad says, you are not to spend any night at the boys' house ever. This will never happen again. Are we clear? Mackenzie says, when are you going to be home? And her dad says, that was on the 20th. And then on the 24th, any idea when you'll be done? I'm picking you up. Mackenzie says, soon. Come now. Her dad says, okay. And then Mackenzie says, hurry, I'm in pain. Her dad says, here, out front. That was on the 25th. So then, and just remember, the detectives are just pulling what they think is more important. This was on 3/9/2020. Hey, call my cell when you're done, okay? Not house phone. Mackenzie says, okay, question mark. Can you rub my feet? Mackenzie's asking her dad to rub her feet. Is that weird? Or is it just me? Because I'm like, I've never asked my dad to rub my feet. Now, if you do that, no judgment, but I don't know. I just feel like, sorry, threw me a little off my element. Okay, so she says, can you rub my feet? Brittany says extremely weird. Everybody's like, that's weird. That is weird saying that. Spoiled little pampered brat. Not weird at all. Yes, it is. Only weird if he's a PDF file. Ew. Okay, let's continue. So the can you rub my feet was on 3/22 the next day. Dude, my dad would probably slap me across the face and be like, excuse me? He'd be like, who are you? Well, one, he would probably be shook because I would never ask that. He would probably think I was possessed. Okay, but anyways, let's continue. Mackenzie says, I do love you, and I did not say anything about Dom when you were leaving with mom. Please let them help you at the hospital. Mackenzie said that the next day. And then Mackenzie says, come home, please. I love you. Your choice. So that was 2 days later. So mom and dad were fighting. Mackenzie says, when are you coming home? Oh, wait, no. Oh, that's the dad. I thought it was, the dad says, come home, please. I love you. Your choice. So she was with Dom for 4 years. So she was already with Dom here. She was fighting with her parents because he's telling her to come home. And then he says, when are you coming home? On 3/27. And then her dad says, you're not going to be in trouble or get punished. Just come home. And then Mackenzie says 6:30. Her dad says K. What the hell? Again, on 4/2. Will you make me warm milk? Okay, that has to be the new inside joke here between us. Who wants warm milk? Who wants Melly to heat you up some warm cup of milk? Would you like some chocolate in there for chocolate milk? Is that what you would like, honey buns of mine? I mean, why is she asking her dad for more milk again? Like, what does she need? A little bottle, a little baby bottle? So then her dad says, just saw this. Do you still want? Mackenzie says no. Her dad says, sorry, my phone was dead. Mackenzie says, Dad, can I please sleep over at Dom's tonight? I won't ask for a while. I just want a night with friends. I'm sorry. Did you guys bring your little cuppy for a refill? Okay, so then she says, can you please let me stay the night at Dom's? Please let me tonight. It will make me really happy. So she was literally 15 years old here. Yo, if I wasn't sneaking out and I asked my dad to spend the night at a boy's house, oh my goodness. R.I.P. Melly. R.I.P. Little Melly. Because I was not allowed to stay at any boy's house. And I never brought any boys home because my dad would go crazy. So then she says, please, Dad, I just want a night away from home. Her dad's like, no. Sorry. Don't argue about it. It's a no. Mackenzie says, please let me, Dad. Kenz, I'm not doing this with you. Sorry, the answer is no. Just accept my wishes and do what your mother and I say, please. Don't turn this into anything that causes me to come get you now, okay? Mackenzie says, that was on 5/3, the next day. Can you get me spray paint? Blue, hot pink, and purple. Like right now, please. What? Who does she think she is, bossing her parental figures like that around? So disrespectful. So she says, like, right now, please. Oh my gosh, you guys, I swear. 5/5. She says, can you make me warm milk? Is someone playing a joke on me? I feel like I'm being punked. This is from the evidence documents. Why does she keep asking for warm milk? It's making me uncomfortable. That was on 5/5. And then on 5/8, can you make me milk? What? Mackenzie loves milk. She loves the milk. She probably enjoying that in the jail too. It tastes like shit in there. Okay, so the dad says, excuse my French. Let me hydrate because over here talking about milk. Okay, so the dad says, Kay, I'm making you milk. I mean, it's nice. Like if you're sick, it's code for joint. Wait, is that for real? No way. I've been fooled by this entitled and spoiled brat, as Antonio says. I don't know. It's probably code for something. Okay, if it's code for substances, then I'm even more concerned because she's 15 here. Asking her dad for milk? That's what I think. Yo, I thought she wanted like a little baby bottle with milk, like you know what I mean? I didn't think she was asking for stuff. I don't know. Maybe you guys are right. We'll never know, will we? I don't know. We have to find out. Okay, so Mackenzie says, can you do it now? Oh my God. Okay, so that was 5/8, 5/9. Can you make me milk again? Text me when it's done. I'll come back. Oh my goodness. Text me when it's done. I'll come back. Please, Alsane, will you walk over there and ask her? The dad says, why would you leave? It's done. Mackenzie says, I wanted to spray paint. I'm with people now. And then the dad says, when I tell you to wait, wait. Thanks. Is this, oh my gosh, you guys, did we just figure something out? Like her dad, because I've heard this before too. Word on the streets is her dad was involved with something and her mom was involved with something. Don't come for me. Don't come arrest me. I'm just speaking allegedly. I'm just a crazy little Latina girl reporting on true crime. But this makes sense now, does it not? It makes sense with the milk. And then it makes sense with how did she get into this so young? She was smoking them blunts to the head at like 14 years old. Holy moly. We're all freaking out in the chat. Brandy says, yeah, def code for something. Bob says, oh, damn, the dad is a dealer. Van says, WTF? Bob says she's asking for a re-up. Oh my God, we solved a mystery. Tell everybody on the streets. Tell them we figured it out. And Steve, you can no longer hide from Mellyverse. We are on to you. Now I'm going to have to deep dive into his life because now I want to know. Now we're going to be nosy. So they're trying to be the cool parents, I guess. Sure does, says Brandy. We love our crazy. That's funny. Dad put heads. Oh no. You're next, Steve. If the family deals, okay, so this makes sense now. Oh my gosh, it makes sense. If allegedly that is true, that's probably how maybe they met Dom, because I know Dom was also participating in this behavior. So I'm wondering if they had a little thing going on. You know what I mean? Okay. Enough of the mystery. So the dad says, when I tell you to wait, thanks. Then on 513, Mackenzie says, can you make me hot cocoa? You guys, so where earlier didn't I say, did you want chocolate milk? Now she wants the hot cocoa. I'm wondering if a foot rub is really a foot rub. I'm questioning everything. You guys, I'm questioning everything. I have like 7 lives on this, and now I'm questioning all of it. I'm like, maybe we should really deep dive the Shirilla parents. Natasha awoke from her sleep. Yeah, I wonder what that is. Hot cocoa is probably the shrooms. She's either asking for, okay, yeah. Okay, so she says, can you make me hot cocoa? Her dad says, sorry, just saw this. 4:08 p.m. Some people do make hot cocoa with the shroomies. What? Okay. Okay, so then that was on 5:14 and then on 6:10. So the detectives are just pulling like what they think is relevant to, I think, this whole ordeal. So then on 6:10, Mackenzie says, can you bring tanning oil? I forgot it. How far? And then her dad sends her a Yelp, or Mackenzie says a Yelp of something. A restaurant address, I think. And then Mackenzie says, can you make more stencils? But out of cardboard. Please let mom buy it. Please let mom buy it. And then she sends her dad a shopping link of stencils, I'm assuming. And then on 7/4, her dad says, 2020, her dad says, be careful tonight and don't roll your eyes and say, oh my God, I know. Mackenzie says, okay. Her dad says, have fun, love you. Mackenzie says, love you too. The next day, everything going okay? Says her dad, Steve. Mackenzie says, yes. And then Mackenzie says, did you fix the pic? I need you to fix it ASAP. I'm trying to post it. Her dad says, did you send it to me? Have not seen it. Mackenzie says, I sent it to mom. Hold on, she's looking. And then Mackenzie sends another attachment. These attachments are very, very tiny here, but don't you worry. I got them. I got the videos. I got all of the images. So we'll go through that on another live. But she's sending pictures of something in the dark. There, she says, make those lighter. Dad says, tomorrow, promise. And that was on 7/30, 2020. And then on 8/3, Mackenzie says, don't you have a sticker printer? Oh, printer. So Mackenzie spelled it wrong. She said printer, but she meant printer. Dad says, kind of. Mackenzie says, thanks, Dad, love you. And then she sends a TikTok of something to her dad. 2 videos. And Mackenzie says, can you make me these? And her dad says, yes. I can make anything. Oh, And then Mackenzie says, I want those skeleton legs on a pair of my pants. Dad? Oh my gosh. Okay, that was on 10/27. So looks like her dad was helping her with like her Halloween costume. And then, you guys, 10/27. Here we go again. Here we go. Can you make me some milk? That's what she said. 12:48 a.m. Wait, that's like at nighttime, right? 12:48 a.m. That's like 1 in the morning. Can you make milk? Oh my gosh. I think you guys are right. They sound like a normal white hippie family. Well, hippie until you're not, and you're crashing your car in 100 miles per hour. Hippie until you're standing in the freeway trying to put hands on your boyfriend. Skeleton legs is code for... Wait, are you guys serious? Do you think Mackenzie will get out of jail? No. Quite the knee slapper, says Natasha. They're so weird. 10-4, thanks. Okay, so she says, can you make me milk again? And then Dad says, sorry, I was already asleep when you sent this. Oh my gosh. That was on 10/27. Then, you guys, I think you're right, because why else would the detectives be trying to include these in the evidence? Obviously, there is keywords here. We figured it out. We figured it out. So then she said, so that was 10/27/2020. And then on 11/4 says milk. She just sends that milk. Question mark, question mark. Okay. Or not. And then she sends a TikTok. Oh my gosh. It's right. So that was on 11. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm over here freaking out. So she says, or not, that was on 11/4. And then she sends her dad something from TikTok on 11/18. And then on 11/28, Mackenzie says, you want WEED. Do you want WEED peanut butter? I'm shook. I'm shook. This girl's like 15 years old. Wow. I mean, wow. Like, not that I'm saying I was an innocent angel, because boy, I was not when I was 15, but I was not doing this with my parents. No, no. No, no. So then her dad says, no, I don't like to eat my weed. LOL. Wow, Steve Shirilla, where are you at? We need you for an interview on Mellyverse, because I'm about to call you out. Someone said she's for the streets. I'm dead. I'm done. I'm done. Okay, so the dad says, no, this is for adults only too. Okay, please, no children 15 here, please. No, LOL, I don't like to eat my tree. Mackenzie says, I'm going to give you a little. Okay, so that was 11/28. 12/7. Are you making me milk? She says again on 12/7 at 11:44 p.m. You guys were so right. Chef's kiss. You guys are, I didn't even know. It was abuelitas over here telling me these slang terms for milk. I didn't even know people called it milk. Okay. So she says, are you making me milk? Dad? Dad? Are you home? And then the dad says, why? Are you okay? Mackenzie says, she sends a picture of, is that, her shoes, I think. I don't know what she's sending a picture of. We'll blow those up later. And she says, get mom this from Glass House. And then he says, bye. Tell mom not to look. Mackenzie says, I don't have any money. They close at 6. Steve, her dad, says, get it from mom. Mackenzie says, I have no money. Get it. Dad? Question mark, question mark. Okay, so that was on 12/24. So she was trying to buy her mom something for Christmas, because Christmas is coming up. So that's 12/24, 12/29. The dad says, you have 10 minutes to get home or I will call the police myself. Oh, sure you will, Steve. Sure you will. You want the police over at your casa? Mi casa es su casa, officer? No, I don't think so. So that was on 12/29. Same day. Mackenzie says, I'm finishing up at a nail appointment. I'll be home soon. Dad says, I would leave now. How disrespectful you are. I told you you were not allowed to drive. You will not be driving at all. I will come get you or any of your friends. No questions asked. Please don't drive around tonight. Be careful. Tell the boy the same. Love ya. So this was on 12/31. Okay, love you too. New Year's Eve. And then Mackenzie says, okay, love you too. Her dad says, tell us you are all right as soon as you see this. 11:18 in the morning. Okay, she's 15 years old. Melly, do you know how to do general math? Yes. I'm pretty sure I'm right. Either 14 or 15 here. And she's getting home at 11:18 a.m. She's not even home. She's not even home the next day. So her dad is like, tell us that you are all right as soon as you see this. Mackenzie says, we up. At Dom's. And that was on 1/1. And then on 2/13, she says, happy birthday, Dad. Love you. So it was Steve's birthday. And he says, thanks, baby. Oh my gosh, here we go again. 2/13. He says, thanks, baby. Then she says at 9:53 p.m., will you make me warm milk, please? That is so wild to me. She says, will you make me warm milk, please? Are you home? Can you please try to book me a massage sooner than 7? I have a birthday party that I have to leave for at like 6. What the heck? She's asking her dad to book her a massage. She's like 15 years old. And then she says, Mom is telling me to book it when, first of all, I never even talk to adults and I have no money and I don't drive. That's what Mackenzie said. And then she says, are you okay? And the dad says, yeah, I'm okay. Feel like I have a cold. And Mackenzie says, okay, to be honest, you need Mary Jane. Thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you for advising your father of that. Warm milk, Dab, maybe, because you have to heat up. Oh, wow. Brandy says, does she do anything herself? No, absolutely not, girl. So she says, okay, you need WEED. And then Mackenzie says, I'm worried. Her dad says, LOL, don't be worried. I actually feel good. Just irritated that I got it and have to quarantine for 10 days. Okay, so this is when the pandemic was going on. And then Mackenzie says, yeah, that's GAYAF. That's what she said. And then she says, COVID some BS. You shouldn't have taken the test. Kendra has hella tests. Hi, Dad. Hope you're feeling okay and your test goes well. So this is the next day. And then she sends a picture of herself to her dad. Just in the car. I think if I sent my dad a selfie, he would probably be like, Melly, did you drink? He would be like, are you feeling all right? You got a fever? Okay, so then 3/6, Dad says, nice picture. And then Mackenzie sends a picture of a dog. And then Mackenzie says, Cammy misses you. And the dad says, of course he does. He's my dog. And then her dad says, do you have any Hershey's bars? And Mackenzie says, I do. And the dad says, don't have, want to give one? Mackenzie says, the food is here. Oh, that was on Okay, so the Hershey's bar has to do with something because Mr. Detectives wanted to extract this text from the text message thread. So the Hershey's means something. If you know, let me know. So she says, I don't want one. Can you give me one? So then on 3 days later, Mackenzie says, the food is here. Dad says, thanks. Mackenzie says, want me to bring it up? The dad says, no, I'll be down. Could Dom move his car so I can get out? Thanks. Mackenzie says, come get his keys. Her dad says, never mind, thanks. The next day, Mackenzie says, you're getting me from school, right? Her dad says, yes, what time? Mackenzie says, 2:25 is when school's out. Ask mom when to leave because traffic is usually bad. Her dad says, I'm here, second row left of the doors. Music will be blasting. LOL. Mackenzie says, LOL, okay. Oh, okay. You guys are teaching me. I got to take notes. Okay, so Mackenzie says, take a pic. Send a pic of your view. Dad says, I'm next to an orange SUV. Find the orange SUV. And that was on 3:15. And then so she says, Dom will drive me tomorrow to Polaris. I have a ride home from Polaris. Dad says, K. Mackenzie says, bring my iPad when you get me. Dad says, where is it? Mackenzie says, in my room. Her dad says, I'm coming. I'm here. Do I need to sign you out? Mackenzie says, okay, I'll come out. Give me 5. Where are you parked? And that was on 3:16. And then her dad says later that day, thanks, baby. I had fun with you today. Mackenzie said, was fun. I'm always down to eat. Dad says, picking you up 10. I'll text you when I get there. I'm here. Okay, so that was on 3:16. Dad was picking her up from Dom's, I think. She was going back and forth from Dom's. So then that was on 3/16/2021. On that same day at 10:20 p.m., Mackenzie says again, milk is cold AF. Milk is cold AF. And then she says, I'm going to drink it, but it's not warm. And her dad says, bring it down. Mackenzie says, can you go in my room and see if I have any mannequin heads in there because mine is missing? What are they talking? Oh, mine is missing. Dad says, K. There are 2 white foam heads with wigs on them. That's all I saw. She has wigs? So then he says, do I need to pick you up? Mackenzie says, yeah. Dad says, I'm here about the same spot as the other day. Mackenzie says, okay. Is high voltage open? Dad says, yeah, they're open till 9 p.m. It's $22 per race. That was on 3/17 at 3:57 p.m. And then at 10:29, it's always around the same time at night. Now she says again, can you please make me more milk? I don't know what the mannequin heads are, and I don't know. Again, she's asking for milk. I will never forget Mackenzie being Milk Kenzie. Like, she just wants milk all the time. Dad says, okay. Dad says, be by to pick you up, 10:30, okay? Are you at Dom's? Please confirm you got my text. Ken's? Question mark. Sounds like cosmetology school. Oh, yeah, that's good. Mackenzie says, okay, coming. Are you here? Dad says, no, not yet. 5 minutes. And then he says, here. I said I'm here. Ken's? And Mackenzie says, okay. Dad says, let's go. You knew I was coming. And that was on 3/18. And then a couple days later, Mackenzie's I guess maybe, I don't know what's going on, but dad says, if any trouble arises, call this number. It's my friend Jimmy. He lives in Toledo. And he sends a contact number. Mackenzie says, okay, good. I will. Dad says, be safe and smart, please. Love you. Mackenzie says, we are at the hotel. We're not doing shit. It's boring, so I think I'll be fine. Dad says, sorry, I worry a lot. Don't go anywhere alone. Mackenzie says, LMAO, we won't. Dad says, don't laugh. I'm not going to sleep well tonight. And then later, Dad says, hey, Mom, hey, it's Mom's birthday Wednesday. We're going to Buka for dinner. Find out what she wants for her birthday, or if you have any ideas, let me know. Mackenzie says, okay, I will. Mom told me she wants a really nice wig for her birthday. Oh, a really nice wig. Sorry, Mackenzie's making typos. A really nice wig for her birthday? Okay, so Natalie Shirilla wanted a wig? And then Mackenzie said, one that's going to look extremely natural, like she's not even wearing one. She wants one and her color. We need to find one ASAP. Her dad says, we'll talk when you get home. Are you on the way? Says Mackenzie. Her dad says, waiting on Danny, then we're on the way. Mackenzie says, you could have just went to Columbus. I don't know why Mom made it seem like shampoo and conditioner was more important than shelves for my room. I really need to get the shelves. This was on 4/2/2021. Dad says, it's okay. You're my pumpkin. You know how in the jail calls, they call her Pumpkin. Pumpkin, don't cry, Pumpkin. Go back to your bunk. So he says, you're my pumpkin. And then Mackenzie says, I know, I just don't want the shelves to be sold out. I really need them. And her dad says, Kay. Hey, sorry to wake you, but Don's got to move his car so I can go to work now. This is a couple days later. Ken's. And then Ken's again. Hello, Ken's. Hey, oh. Mackenzie says, okay. And then she sends a picture, a selfie of herself, I think, again. And then she says, do you know your glasses are there? And that was on 4/16. And then 4 days later, Dad says, wakey, wakey, Dom needs to move his car. And then he says, Ken's. And then he says, now, I have to leave. And Mackenzie says, and then she says, I guess she didn't respond, or maybe they didn't put those in the thread. But then she says, do you know where we can get cones? Mom doesn't want to help. I've been trying to practice maneuverability and nobody is helping. Like my test is tomorrow. Oh, so she was trying to get her driver's license, which she can never get again. Dad says, are the cones up at the high school? Mackenzie says, no, some effing idiot moved them. So now there's no cones there. Dad says, call the school or go to the office and ask about the cones. Maybe they put them out after school ends. Mackenzie says, there's not even school today. But I'm going to call them. Dad says, maybe the cones are off to the side and just not in the lot. And Mackenzie says, someone just bring them here. The school does not own them. I just called. Mackenzie's dad says, okay, you can wait for me when I get out of school 4 p.m.ish or try Home Depot or Lowe's and see if they have them, or just use a parking space without cones. Have DIM or someone stand like the one cone at the top and maneuver them, or just wait for me. And then Mackenzie says, Mom just called the school and they said they're going to see if they have cones. Cones. Ever effing put that on my car again? Never put that on my car again. Now I'm going to be late to school because I had to turn around and go take that shit off. Her dad says, LOL. Mackenzie says, it's seriously not funny. Like, I will seriously flip the F out. Her dad says, don't talk to me like that. And her dad says, LOL. Mackenzie says, I'm going to talk to you however I want until that bumper sticker stops showing up on my car. She is such a rude, disrespectful person. I'm going to talk to you however I want. She said that to her dad. And then dad says no. And then he says, LOL. And then Mackenzie says, because now I'm late somewhere, that my hours matter. Okay, then call Polaris and get my hours back. Dad says, you didn't need to come all the way back. LOL. That's your fault. LOL. Mackenzie says, blocked. Oh, wow. Dad says, thank you for the laugh. LOL. Giggle. That was on 5/4. So I guess she tried to block her dad. And then Mackenzie says, what candle scents does mom like? Can you try to get my picture from this video? Dad says, I can't see it. Am I unblocked? Sorry you didn't have a good time last night. Really, no matter what, Kenz, I love you and only want the best for you. And she doesn't respond until the next day and then says, can I go to Crocker Park, please? Lobster Bisque. Never park my car there again. Oh, that was 2 days later. So she was going to get food. And then 2 days later on 6/18, she says, never park my car there again. Dad says, why? Okay, why? And then she doesn't respond until 2 days later. She says, happy Father's Day. And then she sends like a picture of something. And he says, thanks, baby. And then dad says, 4 days later on 6/24/2021, dad says, would you do me a favor tonight? Please? I won't ground you next time you piss me off. And he says, really? Mackenzie says, what? Never mind, says dad. And then he says, your mother really loves me, but you missed out on a grounding pass. Okay, I wonder what he was trying to have her do. And then on 6/28, Mackenzie says, your windows are down. And then a couple days later, she says, food? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. And then she sends a TikTok a few days later. These TikToks we'll have to view later when we play the clips. Dad says, they had that at the mall, remember? Mackenzie says, no, when? He says, you don't remember the radio-controlled cars in track? And that was, I don't know what that means. You don't remember controlled cars in track? Huh. And then on 7/26/2021, Mackenzie says, turn your down. Tell me when you're home. Dad says, KK. Mackenzie says, how long? Dad says, only on way, a few minutes, in driveway. And that was on 8/6. And then later he says, hey. And then Mackenzie says, okay, coming. That was on 8/6/2021. And that same day at 9:16 p.m., Mackenzie says, where did you put that vodka? So this was a year before the crash. Mackenzie is asking for her dad, where did you put the vodka? So she was drinking vodka at 16. We know that for a fact now, amongst other things. Hello, good to see you. Dad says, on the counter where I showed it to you, LOL. So the detectives probably pulled these because they're trying to prove that Mackenzie was using substances and that her dad played a role in it, whatever. Mackenzie says, oh. And that was on 8/6. 2 days later, Dad says, TSA sucks. I have a big pair of scissors, a toolkit, my butane lighter, and they missed it. Wow. A butane lighter and they missed it. And then he says, sorry, for mom. Oh, that text message was supposed to go to his wife, I guess. Mackenzie says, LOL. And then sends a picture of some lights. Mackenzie, the dad sends pictures of some lights. And then Mackenzie says, I wish. And then Dad sends more pictures. And more pictures. They must be on vacation or something. Oh, and then the dad sends her, I don't know if you guys can see it. They must be on vacation. And the dad found like a store that sells like t-shirts. And he sent Mackenzie a picture. One shirt says stoned 1 and the other shirt says stoned 2. So her parents were definitely involved in some of these activities. Oh, he says, I'm going to get you and Dom these. Okay, so he's going to get Dom those shirts and Mackenzie. Wow. Mackenzie says, oh my God, yes. Dad says, really? What size is Dom? Mackenzie says, it's funny, large. Dad says, you'd like it here, but you need to be 21 to have all the fun. Oh, so maybe he's in Vegas? And then Mackenzie, that was on 8/9. And then she sends pictures of something. I can't see it. And the dad says on 8/10, which one's been at least 3? Mackenzie says, tell mom to answer my text right now. Do it. Hello? Question mark, question mark. Are you just not going to help? And then her dad says, sorry, not getting involved. I'm just going to get mad. Mackenzie says, thanks for making this the worst birthday I ever had. So it was her birthday and somebody was fighting. That was on 8/12. And then her dad says, please answer the phone. I'm not going to yell. And he says, you need to work with us and going to West Coast is out of the question. We do not have the time or money to get there. We would get there and have to turn around and leave. Mackenzie says, there's a lot more places in between that we could go. I'm never going to forget this. And then her dad says, then come up with some. Mackenzie says, New Orleans, Nevada, Mississippi, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. I just came up with some. Know what? Are we effed? I don't know what they're talking about there. And then sends another picture. And then she says, there's Hot Wheel grab bags at this garage sale, Mackenzie said. And then she says, never drive my car again without putting gas in it. Like WTF. Wow, she's still driving her dad's car. And she's telling her dad, never drive my car again without putting gas in it. Like WTF. How are you going to drive someone's car, then not put a single set of gas in it when it's literally below the line? It was not below the line when I gave you my car. And her dad says, first, I took your car to get service, which I paid for, and had to waste an hour of my time waiting for it, and cleaned out some of the inside because the person that drives it is a slob and doesn't keep it clean. And then when I returned your car to the driveway, I noticed the gas was left on empty, so I left you a note. Told you when you came home and told your mother to tell you. So be more respectful and responsible. You owe me $74 for the service and $25 for the hour I had to sit there wasting my time for my disrespectful daughter. That is crazy. And that was on 9/4/2021. So then later, Mackenzie says, I'm inside. We're leaving now. Get corn and watermelon. Can you come get us? I'm here. Dad says, so am I. Mackenzie says, F that BITCH in the red car. I lost my happy face paint. If you find one, it's mine. Dad says it's on the key rack. A couple days later, he says, Dom has to move car. So Dom must have been spending the night and parking in the dad's spot. And then he says, Ken's now. Okay, and that was on 9/23. And then October 13th, Mackenzie says, where are you at? And then she says, calamari, extra lemon, no sauce on the calamari. If there's sauce, lobster bisque, and a side of bread, they give. I work at 6 o'clock and I need to leave by 5:50. Dad says, K. What time will you be back? Said Mackenzie. Question mark. Dad says, I'm now waiting for it to come out. So he was picking up food. Mackenzie says, bet. Dad says, what does bet mean? And Mackenzie says, good. Oh, and then he sends her a picture and he's flipping her off. I don't know if you guys can see that on the screen. He literally sends Mackenzie a picture flipping her off. Wow. And he says, with love. And then that was on 10/15. Later that day, he says, on my way home, traffic sucks. And then he sends a picture of traffic. I have to sneeze. Mackenzie says, okay, yay. Sorry, I thought I had to sneeze. I did. Okay, yay. And then she sends a picture of, I can't see what that is. And she says, you need to fix this. And her dad says, K. How are you feeling? Mackenzie says, not okay. He says, sorry, baby. We'll figure it out. Just try to be patient with us, okay? We only attempting to help. We love you. I love you. Let us help. Oh, so something's going on here. Mackenzie says, that was on 10/21. Mackenzie says later, I need help spray painting this head. I also need a top coat so it's not sticky. Dad says, are you home? Mackenzie says, yes, the paint is literally sticky. I touched by the ear and it's sticky, just like I told you it would be. So what are we going to spray on top to make it not sticky? Dad says, all the paint will be that way till I get home. Mackenzie says, why did you tell me it wasn't going to be sticky then? Dad says, we'll figure it out. Don't panic. Mackenzie says, it's literally sticky. You better fix what you ruined or I will fail Polaris. Dad says, so? Mackenzie says, are you trying to say slow? You're slow? Dad says, I'm saying when you speak to me with disrespect, I don't care if you fail. Then Mackenzie says, let me know when it's fixed. Question mark. Do you know how to use a music DAW? Is that a typo? Good to know. Never ask you to do anything again. You just effed up my whole morning. How about you tell people your plan instead of just effing not going? Wow. Then she says, on the way home from work, can you get the stuff I used for the neck of my project? 2 days later, can you please go with us White Claws or some shit from the gas station? Can you please go get us White Claws? So her dad was buying her White Claws at 16. Or Mike's. Something like that. Dad says, I am in bed, have to get up early, and it's Sunday. Mackenzie says, can you bring us some, please? We need some, even the ones in the garage fridge. Dad says, then come get it. Mackenzie says, there are people here. Oh my God. Dad says, Mom will drop it off in a bit. Mackenzie says, bet. Dad says, bet? Question mark. As in better? Mackenzie says, thanks. Bet as in good. Dad says K. Then he says again, Dom has to move his car. Do you still want the bisque? Mackenzie says no. He says okay. Then she says on 11/4, on the way home, get brownie mix. Dad says, I won't be home until 6:30ish. Mackenzie says, when will you go to Presti's? Please. What is Presti's? Says Dad. Around 6:30 to 7. And then her dad says, I have to be at school till 6. Mackenzie says, a little bakery in Little Italy. Dad says, why am I going there? To get brownie mix? Mackenzie says, no, just to get me these little balls with sprinkles. Just send a pic when you're there. They are so good. Raspberry ones, please. Dad says, found out when they close, I'm at least half hour away from there. So he was getting her pastries, I'm assuming. I don't have school tomorrow. Can I get them tomorrow? Oh, so her dad was in school at the time for something. That was on 11/4. And then that same day, he's sending, map location. Mackenzie says 9 o'clock. Dad says, if I can get to the bakery, can I get them tomorrow just in case I run late at school? Mackenzie says, you're going to make it. Dad says, LOL. But if I can't, is tomorrow okay? I have to stay till and 1 p.m. They just told me I'll try to make it home. Mom is gonna, or you will have to get brownie mix. Mackenzie says, why wouldn't you be able to? Don't you have to get brownie mix if you get the Presti's? Mom is getting the mix. I will rush to the bakery. I'm wondering if they're making pot brownies. Is that what they're trying to do? Because they keep talking about brownie mix and the bakery and all these code words. Thank you, Mallory, for being a member for 1 month. I'm behind y'all, but this shit is insane. Yeah, it is. I'm wondering if that's what they're talking about. Mackenzie says, you will like it too. Get the little circle ones and get the ones that are like wrapped up. Just text me when you're there. Her dad says, I'm here. FaceTime me. And then he sends her pictures of, like cookies. They're actually cookies. And there's more pastries. And she says, yes. Both. And then she says, and they are in ice balls. Aniseed? Anise? She's talking about the herb? Little balls with sprinkles. I think they're called biscottis. Dad says, you're killing me, Smalls. Mackenzie says, LOL. And then sends more pastries, pictures of pastries. Mackenzie says, yes. And then she says, okay, so that was on 11/4. And then on 11/10, she says, would you give me a rosewood? Her dad says, what is a rosewood? Mackenzie says, never mind. And then she says, can you get me Popeyes? Where is Popeyes? Close to us. And what do you want? Mackenzie said, can you do 2 biscuits and a large mashed potatoes? That's it. And then her dad sends her a picture of the Popeyes drive-through sign. Do you want gravy on mash? Gravy or no gravy? Mackenzie says gravy. Thank you. No problem. Get 3 biscuits. You should probably retake your driving test if you can't tell that you literally hit the effing bench with my car. Oh, so her dad hit something with Mackenzie's car. And then she says, hashtag worst driver, hashtag retake your test today. Her dad says, you mean the car I had to move because the person who parked failed to leave room? And don't you mean the car that I pay for? Is that the car you're talking about? Watch how you speak to me or you won't have that car. Mackenzie says, learn how to drive. Hashtag ass. Worst driver of the year. And then she sends him a picture. He hit the bench. And then he says, how many weeks do you want of not having a car? That was on 11/15. 2 days later, he says, where are you? You drive like an ass. Nice speeding ticket, hot rod. So Mackenzie got a speeding ticket. She says, did you hear I got searched? And there were 5 cop cars. Oh, so she was involved with the police. Wow. That was on 11/17. 5 days later, he says, buy a smaller medium plain pizza or extra cheese. Mackenzie, that was on 11/23, and then it goes to 12/9. Mackenzie says, stop being loud AF. Her dad says, what? Mackenzie says, I can hear you all the way from up here. Her dad says, stop being so oversensitive AF, and I'm not being loud. Mackenzie says, that's not oversensitive. I'm trying to sleep and you're stomping around blowing your nose 79 times. The audacity. Like, what? She's so rude. And then she says, stop being a woman hater. And then he says, the dad says, stop being disrespectful to your father. Mackenzie says, no need to call me a name because I'm trying to sleep. I'm not. I just asked you to be quiet. And the dad says, wakey, wakey, Dom has to move a car. I can't get out. Dom has to move it now. Not in 10 minutes, please. Mackenzie says, I told him. Can you please get me Starbucks, please? Her dad says, what do you want? He's just always constantly doing things for her and getting her food and stuff. Where's the mother? The dad says, I have to go out, might be a bit. Mackenzie says, smaller white iced mocha, sweet cream cold foam, and extra caramel, and a chocolate croissant. How long? Dad? Warmed croissant. WTF? Why would you not get my food first? Like, question mark, question mark. I would go if I didn't feel like shit. And then her dad says, I'll let you know when I get there. Please relax. Mackenzie says, like, WTF, I told Dom no because I thought you would actually go. Unreliable AF. Dad says, I was on my way back. I will stop making me stop what I'm doing. Mackenzie says, WTF, maybe next time just let me know you're going to take 5 hours and I'll just have Dom do it because he's actually going to get it. Like, do I have to have mom go? OMG, question mark, question mark. Where are you? WTF. Like, please never tell me you can do something if this is how it's going to be. OMG. Yeah, I'm never asking you to do anything for me again. Goddamn, why can't you do this right? If I don't get chocolate croissant because they're sold out, I'm going to flip out. Wow. Wow. I'm shook. I'm shook. The dad says, what do you want? I'm here. Mackenzie says, I texted you and Danny. I want Reed. What do you want? Says her dad. Medium or small white iced mocha and a warmed up chocolate croissant. And then Mackenzie says, wow, only took 2 hours. Her dad says, one more comment and I'm gone. Mackenzie says, just hurry. For real, it's already late as F. I shouldn't even be drinking coffee this late, but I have to. And her dad says, oh my God, it's 6 p.m. Mackenzie says, I go to bed in 2 hours. The dad said, then what's the problem? Mackenzie says, you taking 2 hours to get my drink. Her dad said, more like 1 hour and 20 minutes dealing with your text. Mackenzie says, next time, tell me you can't go if you don't want to deal with my text. Dumb AF. Her dad says, did you just call me dumb? Because the shitstorm is coming for you. I'd go hide. Mackenzie says, are you threatening me for no reason when I'm sick with see, oh, she had the COVID. It was during the pandemic, I'm assuming, 2021. So loving, she says. And then she sends him pictures of tea. She's asking him to buy tea. She says, 3 Tavana teas, please. And then she sends her dad eBay links for buying stuff. And then she says, new Tavana, wild and orange blood. So she was having him buy her tea. Oh, she says, it's for mom for Christmas. Buy ASAP. And she sends a link again. And she sends a link again. And then dad said, it's not going to be here by Xmas. Mackenzie says, I don't care. I'll just tell her my gift isn't coming till next month. She will like it. So she's telling her dad, talking to him all rude, telling him, go buy this so I can give it to mom. And then her dad's like, it won't be here by Christmas. And she's like, so what? Just buy it. And he's buying it. Like, and then she says, I don't care. And then he says, you should care. She says, buy it. Mom always has stuff for me after Christmas. Sometimes delivery takes longer. Just buy it. That was on 12/23/2021. Then on 12/30, she says, can you please come up here and rub my feet? I'm sorry. Why does Mackenzie have her dad rubbing her feet all the time? Am I the only one that thinks that's weird? I know a few of you said that was weird. That's just so weird. She says they are in pain and mom will not do a good job. And then January, okay, so this is 2022. So now we're in the year of the accident. We'll crash. Can we use your professional camera? We won't break it. Can we use the camera today? That was on 1/3. And then she says, can you rub my feet? That was on 1/6. Then on 1/13, he says, the streets are really icy. Be careful. Please be extra careful driving. It's icy. And she says, I know, I'm at Dom's. Her dad says, if you take the car out, I will call the police and tell them you stole it. You are not driving today, period. You might as well go back inside. Mackenzie said, I'll just show them this, LMFAO. Dad says, K. So what did she say she was going to show them? Then her dad says, you're 17 and I'm your father. I told you not to take that car. Whose side do you think they're going to side with? So when you go back inside, hand me the keys. Mackenzie says, LOL. And that was on 2/3. And then a month later on 3/9, Mackenzie said, where is the soil that you plant stuff in? Where is that big bag of it? Her dad says, I don't know, maybe in the garage. Ask mom. Mackenzie says, she's being dumb AF. That's why I'm asking you. Where in the garage? He says, baby, I don't know. If I had to guess, it's probably buried somewhere. Go buy some at Petite's. She says, when are you going to be back? Because my plant is going to die. He says, 4-ish. And then she said, I got soil. You don't need to buy it. Can you? And that was on 3/9. And then 3/19, she says, can you take I'm wondering what plant that was. I'm wondering, oh, someone just said she wants the soil for the substance. I feel like the police is missing a lot. She says, can you take a pic of my prom dress? He says, sure. She says, never mind. Mom did. When will you be home? He says, 20 minutes or so. She says, bet. Where are you? In a minute. Are you on the way back? He says, they're calling you. Mackenzie says, did you see? The Steelers quarterback died. He got hit by a car. Dad said, he's like the third string. Mackenzie says, I don't know what that is. He said, the backup QB to the backup. And then Mackenzie sends a link. She says, we need a tire. A couple days later. Well, this is in April. We need a tire. Are you close? She sends her location, I think. And then she says, thank you, Dad. No problem. You're my baby. I love you, he says. Be safe. She says, love you. We will. We're on the way now. He says, make good choices. Have fun. Love you. And then that was on 4/19, May 6th. She says, are you close to town hall? He says, no. Why? She says, never mind. Do you want to try deer jerky? Dom's dad made it. It's kind of weird, but good. Her dad says, sure. And then Mackenzie says a screenshot of a text and then another text. And then her dad says, see how awesome I am? LOL, thanks for helping. She says, we should try to go to get her and fight for her. She can literally be in Danny's room. Oh, they're talking about a dog, I think. He says, Skylar's mom got emergency custody of her until they can go to court. Oh, are they talking about a kid? I can't see that picture, but yeah. Skylar's mom got custody of her until they can go to court. Mackenzie says, is that bad? Dad says, no, good. That was on 5/18. On 5/19, she says, you're never driving my effing car again. Disgusted. Don't effing eat fast food in my car and then leave the trash in my car. Disgusting. The accident happened July 31st and August 1st. And then she says, don't eat in my car. It's disgusting. Also, maybe try putting it back the way it was when you left. Don't take my steering wheel off if you're not going to put it back on. You're done. And then he says, first, our car that we pay for. Secondly, don't you speak to me like this. Sorry, it was just a bag. Oh my God, grow up. Third, I'll drive that car when and wherever I want. Mackenzie says, if you can find the keys. So you will not be driving my car anymore. And then she says, you can ask for my permission though, and then maybe you can. But I'm just letting you know, disrespectful. And then her dad says, again, my car that you use. And Mackenzie says, if you want to be treated with respect, how about you give it to other people? And then her dad says, ditto. And then Mackenzie says, have fun in your closet when you get home. Your trash is in there. Dad says, if I was you, I'd think twice before you piss me off and then you won't have a car, period. So text me again with your BS and see. Think twice. Mackenzie says, I'll tell you 1,000,000 times not to disrespect my car and take my steering wheel off and leave trash, especially fast food in my car, but you never listening. I'm just telling you that you're disrespectful. And her dad says, when you start making car payments and car insurance, ... Until then, keep your disrespectful tone and words to yourself. And this is May 20th. Mackenzie says, we're on the way. He says, I'm here. And then Mackenzie says, we will be there in 7 minutes. We're parking. 5 minutes. That was on May 20th. And then he says, be careful, have fun. She says, thank you, love you. But not too much fun. LOL, he said. And that was on 5/20/2022. And then on 5/21, she sends text messages again. And then he says, yes, the school knows nothing has been done. Just talk. Mackenzie says, what do I say? Her dad says, tell her not to worry about it and relax. And then Mackenzie sends an Instagram link. And he says, why? On 5/26. And then Mackenzie says, it's a Bape Hot Wheel. Dad says, I don't have Instagram login. Send me a pic. And she says, oh, I don't know why it's making you log in. He said, I don't know. And she sends pictures of this Hot Wheel. Couple of them. And then her dad says, how much is it? 50 for the Hot Wheel, 150 for the shirts. And then Mackenzie sends the link, the picture. And he says, too much, but they look cool. Thanks. And then Mackenzie sends more pictures and screenshots. And then her dad says on 6/14, so this was like a month or so before the crash, are you at Dom's? Mackenzie says, no. Take them home. I'll pick them up. Thank you. Wait, was that the same day, 6/14? Yeah. And then dad says K. Mackenzie says, I needed them. How many did you get? Her dad says 6. And she says, thank you. And then on 6/16, she says, here, can we go? And then on 6/19, she says, happy Father's Day. He says, thanks. And then she sends a screenshot again. We'll read all of these screenshots on another live. And then she sends a screenshot, and then he says, tell I know. Maybe open both windows, Cheech. Mackenzie says, we did. Her dad says, hey, did my friends give you a $20 bill by chance? And then her dad sends a picture of something at the store. Mackenzie says, what is that? Mom said this to send you. It's a heat press. I have one. Mackenzie says, I don't know what that does. And her dad says, for shirts. Make cricket t-shirts for applying the image to the shirt. And that's the end of it, the text messages with her dad. I don't know why they're so interested in this shirt conversation. Okay, so those were the text messages between her dad that the detective pulled from Celebrate data. The Celebrate data from her dad. Okay, we got through 277 of those text messages. So tomorrow night, we're going to review all of the text messages between Mackenzie and Angela, which is Dom's brother. And then we're going to start the Doms. I know I put it in the title. I'm going to have to go back and fix it. We've already been live for almost 3 hours. So tomorrow night, we're going to read through the text messages between Mackenzie and Angelo. And then we're going to start the Dom text messages. And I will probably we did part 2 tonight. We'll do part 3 and so on. Because I have 31,000 pages of text messages between Dom and Mackenzie. Melly, are you really going to get through those on your channel? You bet I will. We are going to get through them together because we're going to read them together tomorrow night. So with that being said, wowzers, all of it. I got all of it. It's pretty wild. So what I'm going to do is we're reading these together on a live, but I'm going to create some sort of video. So other creators, if they want the content, they can hit me up and they can have it. These text messages, if they can't get them. But I'm really excited to get into the Dom text messages. We're going to see a lot there. I think this between her dad was wild, and we figured a lot of information out today. Like her dad was also doing substances. Her dad was enabling that. We got a picture of that relationship, right? And I think that's important when we factor in everything that went into this case and is going into this case. And now that the calls are being released. So I think those text messages between Dom are going to be very telling. And I hope you guys come back tomorrow night so we can start that. We didn't get through them today. We had a lot of stuff to go through. But we're going to get through those 31 pages with Dom text messages. I am determined to get through them. So please make sure you turn on your notifications so you know when I'm live. I will be dropping some pre-recorded videos. We'll be live the rest of the week. I'm not only going to cover Mackenzie Shirilla case this week, I'm covering a couple other cases. So like I said, definitely make sure you turn on your notifications. Please, please, please give me a like on the way out. It really helps push my channel out. And I appreciate you guys so much for being here with me tonight. I will see you tomorrow, continuing text messages between Dom and Mackenzie. And thank you to Abuelitas and Natasha, all my mods that were here. I love and appreciate all of you who support my channel. And again, don't forget to turn on your notifications, hit the like button, and I will see you guys tomorrow night to continue the reading of the text messages. Bye and stay safe.